All right. As the mayor of the town of Clayton, I'd like to call this town council work session to order. And your agenda is in front of you, and I will entertain a motion to adopt or adjust the agenda.
Motion to adopt.
Second.
Got a motion and a second to adopt the agenda as presented. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. All right, this afternoon, we're going to begin with staff introductions and recognitions, and we're going to give the floor to Lauren Box, Assistant Parks and Recreation Director. Oh, and presenter is Todd, sorry. I think I'll put my glasses on. It's going to make this meeting go a whole lot better, right?
Hey, all right, thank you. Pleasure to be here today to introduce Lauren Botts to council, mayor, leadership, executive team. Lauren comes all the way from California. She came a long way. She red-eyed to her interview back in February, and still knocked it out of the park. Like I would have been not functioning at all in that circumstance, but she did great. So Lauren, first day is today. It's her first trip to town hall ever. We've already checked off some boxes though on our way, so we're good there. But Lauren brings a wealth of knowledge. Should be a great fit with us as an assistant director. She came from the city of San Jose Parks, Recreation, and Neighborhood Services Department. She had several roles there, moved the way up the ladder. She has a lot of experience in staff management, training, grants, sponsorships, agreements, partnerships, facility management, programming for every age, inclusion and adaptive programming, and citizen engagement. And as you know, as we're expanding and moving into other facilities, this will be all huge pluses for us. So we're looking forward to that. So I want to welcome her and give her a quick minute to say something, and thank y'all for having us.
Awesome.
Thank you so much, Todd. Good afternoon, council members. Again, my name is Lauren Box. I'll be the new assistant director here for the town of Clayton. I'm happy to be here. Tomorrow will actually be a month being an official resident in the great state of North Carolina. So any tips and tricks on places to eat, places to go, please send them my way. My family and I are exploring constantly, but from a work perspective, I'm really excited to be doing all the things, especially from a programming and partnership, and welcome any feedback or comments that you guys have for us. Thank you.
Awesome. Welcome.
Thank you.
We'll teach you to say y'all in 4 syllables. Don't worry. Okay, you're getting there. Okay, good. Awesome. Thank you both. Up next, we'll give the floor to the Assistant Engineering Director, Kenzie Holton.
Good afternoon, council members, Mayor. Good to see everybody. I get the lucky privilege of introducing 3 new additions to our department. Jonathan Ann would be here, but he's covering for a couple of things at home right now. But I'll start off with Elena Cook to my left here. Elena has joined the engineering team as a development plan reviewer. She joined us last month. And she is going to bring a lot of much needed, much welcome support when it comes to the transportation roles. That is with her experience as a licensed professional engineer with over 30 years of experience in transportation with NC DOT. She has a civil engineering and environmental engineering degrees from NC State University. You'll see a NC State thread here as we go along. And then she most recently retired from NC DOT as the transportation planning division, where she served as the transportation planning unit head. She worked with communities all across the state. And so to have her as a resource to join our group when it comes to our development review and permitting process is very exciting. She is also a native to Clayton and is, really excited kind of on this next step to really be part of the local community and really shape the fabric of all that's coming through our department for the community going forward. So we're excited to have Elena join us. Hannah Davis is next. Hannah joined the town back in December 2025, bringing with her a strong academic foundation and deep passion for environmental stewardship. So Hannah is our environmental compliance specialist. So she is working with our environmental compliance group. I'll stick to the script. She has 2 degrees. So she earned a Bachelor of Science in both environmental sciences and political science. This combination speaks directly to the work that we do, where science and policy must work hand in hand, to support a smart, sustainable community. It definitely speaks well to how, it shows how she speaks so well to the community, having that ability for strong communication and that background in political science. Since joining the town, she's hit the ground running. She conducts site inspections across construction and development projects, ensuring sediment and erosion control measures are properly implemented and maintained, protecting our natural resources in Clayton as it continues to grow. She works directly with construction or contractors and developers, providing them technical guidance while upholding our compliance standards. Really getting out there and pushing forward this, hey, work with me, work with us, we work with you, mentality, because we're, as they like to say, their compliance, our compliance depends on their compliance. What sets her apart is that it's just not a career for her. It is a calling. She brings a genuine personal investment and passion to the role and is deeply committed to seeing Clayton grow in a way that's responsible, resilient, and equitable. And last but not least is Tucker Creech, our latest addition. Tucker joined the town as a project manager in our CIP group last month. So of our 3 divisions, we have 3 new additions right here for the engineering department. So we're really excited. Tucker is also a Clayton native, graduated from Clayton High School before earning his bachelor's degree in civil engineering from NC State University. He brings over 7 years of experience in commercial construction with a background that spans field labor, superintending, and project management. Tucker is married and currently expecting a baby girl in May. Congratulations, Tucker. Outside of work, he enjoys spending time with his family and participating in drag racing with relatives and in-laws. So I told them they didn't have to necessarily come up and give you tidbits about themselves. They're welcome to, but we're really excited to have them join our group to the point of, we're getting to know each other very well in our office suite up there in the engineering department. So thank you all.
Awesome. Welcome, everybody. It's really true that NC State is the best engineering school. All right, up next, I'm going to give the floor to Chief of Staff and Strategic Initiatives, Dolores Gill.
Am I on? Yep. And I will say, the very first time I met Tucker from engineering, he said, "Hi, Miss Gill, you used to be my principal." So he dated me. So it's a very small world. I have the pleasure of asking Kenya Walls, our HR director, to come up and stand beside me today because she has accomplished a certification we would like for you to be aware of because it takes a lot of time and a lot of effort. Recently, on January the 16th of this year, the Public Sector HR Association has a high-level certification program. It is knowledge-based. It requires people to come in and prove their knowledge related to all aspects of human resources. And Kenya took the time to study and gain that certification. And it is the premier credential for public sector HR professionals, and it's internationally recognized, and it is for HR professionals who are committed to the field and working at a high level. And so she brought this to me one day just quietly, and I said, "Oh no, this can't stay quiet. We need to recognize you for these achievements." HR is a very dynamic field, ever-changing, requiring all sorts of attention to policies, procedures, working with people, and just staying all around in the know. So being able to gain this certification means a lot to the town of Clayton. Wanted to make sure you had heard about it. And Kenya, I'm going to turn it over to you for you to say a few words about how excited you are.
Good morning, or good afternoon at this point. It is exciting to have this designation and the letters behind my name. It's a little bit disheartening when you hear senior, because that means I've been in the field a little bit too long at that point, but I'm excited to have that and be able to contribute even more to the public sector side of HR. Thank you.
Awesome. Well, congratulations. That's awesome.
Thank you so much. We're excited.
All right, thanks everybody. Up next, under items for discussion, is going to be the budget survey review.
Mayor, while Laney's getting set up, if I could take a moment here, you can probably tell from the theme of many of the items that are on the agenda today, the rest of the afternoon is going to be very focused on essentially the building blocks that will lead up to hopefully, not hopefully, that will lead up to a manager's recommended budget in May for you all to consider. There are several key aspects that we take into account when we're trying to get ourselves get a recommended budget for you all. And so today, try to go through, let you all know kind of some of the inputs that we have, some of the considerations and how we're looking at those different needs and weighing them against each other. And then ultimately just some early perspectives that we'd like to get from you all so that we don't get too far down a path and then find out there's other requests that may be coming. So with that, Laney's going to kick us off with the budget survey results, and we'll build off of that. Thanks.
Good stuff. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Laney. I'm a budget fellow with the town. I started in August, working with Todd, really through UNC Chapel Hill's Lead for North Carolina program. There are 35 other versions of me around the state. I'm really hoping to build capacity for the next generation of public service across the state. So today we're going to jump into all things budget survey, and this is really the hard work of the communications department. They fielded the survey over the last 5 years. I'm really a megaphone of those results today. I'm excited to share with you some of the findings that we have. So a quick overview, we'll kind of go through the demographics, the who filled this out, really some overview by theme, and really some large big picture takeaways from that. So in terms of who, we have exactly the same number of people in town limits who filled it out from last year, down to like the single digit. I think that's very unique and interesting. And we have about 1,600 people total who filled it out. A little lower than years past, but I think still pretty strong when you consider the general population of the town. And this is kind of a breakdown by category of how people are tied to Clayton. In terms of time in Clayton, you can see a pretty diverse background here, with most people being here in the 2 to 5 year range. 1 in every 5 people, though, have been here less than 2 years. I think that shows some ties to people care about where they move. People seem to have moved to Clayton for a reason and really want to engage civically, and I think that's a really strong number for people new to the town. Renting versus owning, we kind of see an 80-20 split here with the majority of folks owning a home who filled out the survey. And size of household. I think, honestly, when I saw this slide, I expected 4 people in a household to be most common, but it's actually 2 people, which I think took me by surprise and may take you by surprise as well. In terms of data overview, the survey is really organized into 8 distinct themes. So you have cultural arts, economic stability and growth, environmental sustainability, the library, parks and rec, public safety, transportation and infrastructure, and a vibrant and accessible downtown. The structure of this survey was created pre-strategic plan. So when you see kind of those wordings, it's capturing the broader spirit of things, but I think we've kind of have some new vernacular that we use. So just want to add that little piece to it. In terms of order of importance, I think 2 things that stick out immediately when we look at this. People who ranked out of these 8 categories, economic stability and growth and public safety are at the top. So those 2 categories have the highest frequency of folks who ranked that number 1. Also don't want to lose sight of transportation and infrastructure. We'll get to that in the next slide. But that is kind of, those top 3 really stick out to me when looking at this. And when we ask folks where they want their money to go, if you have $1 and you can allocate pennies to that, you really see public safety stick out. But number 2 is actually transportation and infrastructure, which I think complements the findings on the previous slide and also kind of speaks to a larger trend of what does it mean to grow that we'll get to a little later on. When we think about cultural arts, these slides that we're looking at now really go into smaller categories of what specifically about this intrigues you, what sticks out to you. We see family-friendly experiences really running the lead here, closely followed by concerts. And when we look at these open-ended responses where folks kind of have a blank canvas to tell us what's on their mind for this, We see some suggestions of expanding theater and live musical performances, having broader concert programming, and adding some historical and educational programming to enhance cultural offerings. Moving on to economic stability and growth, infrastructure improvements really tell the story of this slide. And really thinking about that alignment of future development with the infrastructure that we have, with the infrastructure that we're preparing. I'm really prioritizing small local businesses and kind of this broad concern over rising utility costs that came out in a few different categories. I stuck it here, but that really was a larger theme within the survey as a whole. Environmental sustainability, resources to support community forestry efforts is number one here, closely followed by stormwater runoff programs. And really, when people shared what's on their mind, preserving what we have really came to the top. Concerns regarding odors and how that impacts quality of life, wanting to be outside, and asked to improve litter control within the town. Moving on to the library. I think folks think a lot of things are important with the library. So these were pretty close in nature, but additional engaging programming really sticks out from this. And one of the suggestions that was really detailed in this open-ended responses is thinking about working parents when thinking about programming. How do we have things after hours so folks can drive their kids and really be present with them in that way, in addition to expanding digital library access. And this first one just wanted to call out a larger modernized public library. I think folks are really excited for the new library improvements that are coming along, but multiple responses really spoke to wanting a second campus that's bigger. And I think, just want to kind of delineate those two things when we think about these results. Parks and Rec. I think for me, something that was really interesting in this is maintenance of what we already have superseded building something new. I think that was a theme throughout a lot of these categories of keeping what we have up and running, keeping it to a high standard, almost to the point of prioritizing that actively over building new for the sake of having something new. I think that is unique. I wouldn't expect that maybe for a town growing the size of Clayton, but I thought it was a really interesting finding. And really, aquatic center, a pool, it was top of mind for folks. Expansion of the greenways, really connecting it intentionally to downtown, places where you want to walk. And a lot of ideas for sports facilities, lots of volleyball suggestions, basketball courts, and other athletic amenities for the town. Transportation and infrastructure, again, you see maintenance of existing roadways, improvements to existing roadways over construction of new roadways, which kind of speaks to that larger theme I was talking about earlier. Turning lane extensions were top of mind for a lot of people. People had very specific call outs for that, of specific places they'd like to see that. Development of sidewalk connections, I think that really works in tandem with the greenway finding that we talked about earlier. And public transit, buses, someone had a streetcar idea, but how do we reduce reliance on kind of this one person to one car way that we currently move around town? And then finally, vibrant and accessible downtown, really public enjoyment and having spaces that are active, that are have vitality to them, really sticks out here. Downtown parking, people have thoughts. I put adjustments to downtown parking because there's lots of different thoughts about how that gets accomplished. And I know Nathaniel printed out kind of a breakdown of everyone's responses so you can read kind of the skew, the spectrum of that. Pedestrian safety improvements, particularly in downtown. How do we prioritize a pedestrian's experience in downtown really came to mind. And adding restaurants, bars, things that could improve the nightlife of Clayton. And then special events, you can see Harvest Festival's beloved, but really all of these have some aspect of this is important to me. And I think that that's an exciting thing to see for the civic life and the civic fabric of the town. In terms of takeaways, it's really one word, it's growth. I think nearly every single response speaks to how do we grow, what do we grow, and what do we prioritize. When you're thinking about pedestrian safety, when you're thinking about adding a new restaurant, it all comes back to how do we manage that effectively? How do we manage it in a way where these voices are heard? And that really is, I think, the big picture takeaway of the voices that we heard through this survey. And yeah, just some parting thoughts. I think people wrote a lot. And I hope you'll have the time to kind of be able to read through those. And I think that says a lot about people care. People really care about thoughtful, transparent decision making, and that sustainable growth. Being able to do that effectively is a really, really important way to build trust through local government. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Awesome. Any questions or comments for staff? Mr. Casey.
I have a comment. Can we get this presentation sent to us so we'll have it, or put it in that shared drive, I guess? Thank you.
Great presentation. You did a great job of presenting those facts so well and very clearly, and I really appreciate the time it took for you guys to put those together. Thank you for that. Very insightful.
Good stuff. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Up next on the agenda is going to be the budget summary. Thank you. That was great.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council, staff, friends. Todd Melton, Budget Manager. Laney is passing, or we're going to pass around 3 sheets of paper for you all. This is going to be a financial report that shows where we are today with balancing the budget. We'll get into that a little bit more in my slides as well. This is our first public discussion of fiscal year 27, so very exciting day for all. Overview of what I'm going to talk about a little bit this afternoon. We're going to talk about how we got to where we are from the beginning of fiscal year 27 planning. Talk about some of the external factors that are affecting how we're having to try to balance the budget. Discuss some of the projections and assumptions that we created for our revenue estimates. Talk about summarizing all the additional requests from department heads this year, how these requests tie to the strategic plan, and then sort of a little bit more about where we are today and looking forward. So just as a reminder, we started on December 3rd this year. We kicked off the budget development. That was 4 months ago. Department heads had about 2 months to 2.5 months to get all the requests in for new ads for the year. Reminder, we do a base budgeting process to where most departments have a base starting out that they don't have to request again this year, but they are free and encouraged to advocate for their departments and request new ads. We kicked off the budget survey. That says February 2nd. It was a mistake because we got snowed out. We kicked it off officially on February 16th. So February 13th is when all the requests were due again. March 2nd to March 6th, we had departmental request meetings with all department heads where they came to executive team, town manager, some of us budget folks, and talked about all their requests, provided additional justification and commentary on what they were asking for. After that, to this point, we've been reviewing the requests and developing strategies to balance, because as you know, the total for all the requests always exceeds the amount of resources we expect to have, right? So looking presently, we are at the budget work session today. That's the next big big date for us. And then in May, on the 18th, we will come back with a manager's recommended budget with a public hearing and all the sort of fun stuff that comes along with that. So some of the external factors we have, in addition to inflation, those sorts of things, we had a couple of sort of outliers this year that have caused us to think outside the box and how to balance the budget in these new requests. One being one that we talked about last fall, those kind of kicked down the road to the next fiscal year, state health plan surcharge. Again, this was from the treasurer's office to help fund the underfunded state retirement fund. They've assessed a surcharge of 2.4% on all salaries for members of the state health plan, town of Clayton being one of those. So that is sort of an unfunded mandate that we have to plan for. Also, we have a change in the funding mechanism from the Johnston County to all municipalities with fire departments that serve the Johnston County Fire District. So that's going to affect our revenue as well. Those two things added together bring, it's about $1 million, $1.1 million in unfunded sort of external factors. Rich?
Yeah, so just to expand on that, from the state health plan perspective, we've done some investigation on that, and at this point, it does not appear as though we would have any other options. State law is pretty specific in that a decision to join the state health plan is irrevocable. So once you're in, you're in. And so the 2.4% increase surcharge that is being levied against us at this point, unfortunately, we do not have any opportunity to get any relief from that at this point. With regard to the Johnston County Fire District funding changes, I know the mayor and I attended a mayor's meeting about a month ago now. There was a letter sent from the municipalities to the county commissioners requesting that they reconsider what is intended to be an implementation for this particular year with regard to that funding. Todd will get into it a little bit more here. He has the specific numbers, but Clayton alone on an annualized basis, it's several hundred thousands of dollars per year less funding that we would receive, which was not anticipated at this time last year when we were going through our other budget discussions regarding reval and otherwise. So more to come on that and more discussion to be had, but just wanted to make it clear. The first one on the state health plan, there's really not any opportunity for us to have any input or otherwise with regard to that one. The Johnston County Fire District tax disbursement changes, there may be some opportunity to still have some discussion with the county commissioners.
Thank you, Rich. Moving on to revenue assumptions, we're, our two big revenue streams are obviously our ad valorem tax, property taxes, and our sales tax. So just a note or two on how we projected revenue growth in those two categories. We projected a pretty conservative number, we think, about 3% in sales tax growth year over year, meaning from this year, budget year to next year, we're projecting about 3%. This is in line. North Carolina League of Municipalities released their projections last week, and I think they had a 3.1% statewide average for increases there. Property taxes, we're trying to be conservative with that as well. We're not projecting growth necessarily at this point, but we're using numbers from the most recently collected tax scrolls to project property tax revenue for next year, and that's about a $1.2 million increase over the budgeted amount for this year. So we'll get into some of the things that were requested, or some of the themes that were requested, let's say. This is a bubble chart showing, this is basically just, the bigger the bubble, the higher the value for the request from that department. I think it's interesting that it really lines up well with sort of our budget survey and strategic planning as well. I mean, infrastructure and public safety are the big bubbles, right? Yeah. Fire, public works, water, sewer, and electric. That big debt service bubble is our first LOB repayment that is due in fiscal year 27 for the new properties this year. And this is another way to just slice it up. We have divisions within departments that are thematical. Non-departmental is where the debt is. That's the biggest one, because the debt payment for next year is $1.8 million for the law, the first payment. Administration, that one's big because every department has administration, so it's just a matter of a number of requests going in there. Just a few numbers. We had about 160 requests this year across the three funds, all departments, most divisions, about $11.6 million in requests across all three funds. I don't know if you'll notice or not, but the number we kind of discussed on revenue is smaller than that $11.6 million. Just want to do a little foreshadowing here. How do these requests tie to the strategic plan? Another bubble chart here. These are our 7 focus areas as a reminder. Sustainable infrastructure and investment, by far the winner in the focus areas, which makes sense. And that's sort of in line with what we saw in the budget survey that Lanny just reported to us, right? Most people, when asked how much of their dollar that they want spent on certain things, it was infrastructure, right? It was streets and it was infrastructure. Also public safety, which is the second biggest bubble there. So, where are we today? This little chart shows a really high-level summary of where the general fund is. Now, Joshua and Matt are going to come up and talk about enterprise funds in a minute, so I concentrate a little bit more on the general fund. About $1 million in unanticipated external factors. These are round numbers. That was really closer to 1.1 million. 2.5 in growth in revenue due to ad valorem taxes projected to grow, state taxes, sales taxes, sorry, and a few sales and permits revenues we adjusted. We had 8.8 million in departmental requests for the general fund this year, which leaves us out of balance by about 7.3. And if you look at that general fund report that you have in front of you there, that number should match. That negative number at the bottom should be about $7.33 million. So that's where we sit today with all the requests and all the projected revenue growth. As a reminder, 1 penny tax revenue is worth about $545,000, a little bit under $546,000.
So
Go ahead.
I was going to say, let me jump in real quick, Todd. So you saw the number on the previous slide, about 7.3 out of balance with all of department requests. I believe it's safe to assume you all are not going to be comfortable with a 13-cent tax increase. I'm seeing a lot of no. So and that's really what we want to have a conversation about. You know, the unanticipated factors. Frankly, if we had known about the 2.4% and we had known about the fire tax reduction at this time last year, we probably would have been having a different conversation with regard to our recommendation for tax rate after the reval. However, understanding that we had told you that the rate that we chose last year should be able to carry us for several years. We have been operating under the assumption that no tax rate increase would be acceptable this year. And so that's some of the strategies that Todd and I have been working through with the rest of the team to try to close the gap on that 7.3 million.
A quick reminder about base budgets, and you've heard me talk about it 100 times, but as a reminder, we do set the base for a lot of expenses based on years of actuals versus current year budget, sort of adjust those every year. So that's set before the request opens. The request opens and folks are allowed to add funding packages, 1, 2, 3, 4 there, to their budget. And that builds their requested budget for the year. As Rich mentioned before, we're talking about balancing strategies right now, and these are the things that we're using. We're using the budget survey, we're using the strategic plan, and we're using operational needs to whittle that imbalance down closer to zero. I'll open the floor. Please ask any questions, any comments, happy to help where I can.
Ms. Hodge.
Thank you for the information, Todd. That was great. And just looking over the 4 documents we were handed out, I just want to make sure I'm clear how these connect to what we just saw. So obviously we have the general fund account ledger sheet. So that's what you're referring to there.
Yes.
The other 2 are the utilities, which.
That's right. And it's not spelled out. It's sort of abbreviated. Fund 100 is a general fund. Thank you for asking that question. 300 is water sewer fund, WSF. And then 310 is the electric fund.
Yeah,
What was the 4th one?
And then the 4th one was a spreadsheet that says
Oh, okay.
funding package name.
Yes.
And so I'm assuming these are the initial departmental asks that have been kind of prioritized. That's going to be my question are these prioritized already? Is just the raw data from departmental requests, or just want to make sure I was clear what I was looking at?
Right. Thank you. That is every request that originated from outside of, we have some requests that are sort of, we have to do a funding package to increase the sales tax projections and that sort of thing. So we filtered out sort of the things that Rich and I have done to help us try to balance, but this is from everyone outside of our department, all the external departmental requests. There are about 130 something on your list, I believe. They are separated by fund and subtotaled by fund. So you should have, I think the general fund's probably a couple pages and a page each for the others. Yeah, that's everything that has been requested by department heads.
But just to reiterate what. No, sorry. It's not prioritized in any.
That's correct. It's not prioritized in that list at this point. Yeah.
Yeah, so for today, obviously the $7.3 million delta is not affordable in its current form. There are a lot of great things that have been asked for here, a lot of needs that are definitely justified, but certainly won't be able to do them all in 1 year. And so we wanted to give you an opportunity to get a look at what those are. Obviously, some of them range from everywhere from a $1,500 or excuse me, even a $250 request just for dues and subscriptions, all the way up to hundreds and thousands or millions of dollars for new programs, or one of the instances, for instance, Chief Raines had made the request that we discussed a few months ago regarding the preemption on our signals here in town. That isn't in here. That is one that we've already heard that the council has said is a priority. So it is one that, frankly, Todd and I have not considered to hit the cutting room floor. However, some of the other items that are in here, there's a lot of positions. While we appreciate the need for positions, we're going to look at other opportunities, either through efficiencies or with some of the different software packages that we've already invested in and have coming online. Hopefully, we would definitely want to defer a decision on a few of these just to be able to see if if those do actually provide us some of that efficiency that we're intending to, and possibly open up some workload capacity in some different areas. So from our perspective, we've looked at this a couple of different ways. There are different strategies we've employed in previous years with regards to assumptions of debt, taking on debt for rolling stock, for instance. We've been fortunate the last 2 years. We have not actually had to do that because we've had other revenues that have outpaced our projections. So we've been able to not have to take on the additional debt for those. This year, depending, essentially because we're starting out $1 million in the hole for those 2 items we discussed earlier, this may be a year that we do have to consider taking on some debt next year, I should say, FY27, to be able to provide for some of those equipment and vehicle replacements. But ultimately, we have a couple different ideas on how we can get that number in line within the current tax rate, excuse me. But we've got some more massaging to do. We've got some additional conversations, the fire tax finalization, we have been operating, I think, under what we would consider to be our worst case scenario, which effectively is they implement the plan as currently approved, I believe. I believe it has been approved by the county commissioners. But if there is any relief or any other opportunity there, that may give us some opportunity to let a few more of these things happen. The other thing we're doing right now, Todd and Laney and the team have been going through current fiscal year budget, trying to find if there's any underspent funds or revenues that are outpacing our initial projections, that maybe some of these items can actually be achieved this current fiscal year. so they won't impact the next year's budget. So those are some of the work that we're going to be doing over the next couple of weeks, so that the May work session that we come back to you all, we have this list and kind of identify which items we're recommending stay, which ones we are looking to defer or even cut if we feel like there's just not a need for them, as well as there are other opportunities, some of these to say partial year fund. So some of the positions we know, if we know that they're not going to be hired effectively July 1, we can offset that and assume that it's a mid-year hiring, which obviously helps us reduce the total cost in the immediate. Now can't lose sight of that then becomes a full cost in the outer years. So those are the considerations that we're going to be going through over the next couple of weeks to finalize a recommendation to you all of what items in here we see to be the priorities based on those input categories, but certainly want to give you all an opportunity to look through this, see if there's anything that you're, I'll say, passionate about making sure is in there. Anything that you would like just some more information to understand the why behind the ask, and/or if there's anything that's not on this list that you feel like should be on the list, or just have an idea, we'd certainly like to hear those from you so that we can try to incorporate them if we can. With regard to the 3 fund, thank you for asking that, Ms. Archer. These are high level, part mainly because, we are still working through all the finite details of the individual budget the funding package requests, as well as vetting some of the revenue assumptions that we have, making sure that, the closer we get to May and then ultimately June, when you all would adopt, hopefully, some of the uncertainty should be much clearer to us than it currently is. We do have some external partners, particularly on the water and sewer front, where we need to be closely communicating as well as following their political process to see. We have assumptions baked in as to, for instance, the base charge for water that will be going up in our purchased water from the county. If that number stays that number, then our assumptions to balance that budget will be fine. If for some reason during their conversations that number goes up or down, we'll just have to be in a position to adapt and adjust as needed. So, again, more information on the enterprise funds coming this afternoon, but just want to make you guys aware that on the general fund side, particularly the 7.3, it's a heavy lift. But not one that, at least in some initial scenario modeling that Todd's done, that we think that we can't achieve just of the 130 something general fund ones that are left on, or 100 and however many that are left on the list. There are a fair amount of them that will not make the cut this year.
Yeah, and a note on the Fund 300 and Fund 310 reports that you may notice we haven't touched the revenue yet. Rate discussions and rate analysis are ongoing. You'll hear a little bit more about that after I hop down here. So more to come on the revenue side of those. The revenue side of the general fund, we feel like we've taken a pretty good swing at it, but as Rich said, we're going to get updated numbers from now until when we ask you all to adopt. So especially property taxes, we'll get more tax scrolls and things like that. It'll provide us updated numbers, but the current property tax number we have in there was based on the scroll that we did get this month, last month. So, we'll adjust those things as we get new information.
Mr. Casey.
Thank y'all. I know we're obviously in the beginning of this process, but how do we plan on cascading this information to the community? I know we have the budget website, and then as we get further along in this process, can we make sure that those documents, when they're available, they are searchable? So you can kind of go in if you need to search certain specific items.
The PDF, yeah, definitely got a better plan for that this year for sure. We will, I think, when we come back in May, May 18th will be the first official opportunity for us to provide that. Of course, we have the statutory requirements on providing things for public inspection and things like that too. But yeah, we do have a budget website this year, and hopefully give us more opportunities to provide find another spot for folks to look for what we got going on. But yeah, I think May 18th will be the first opportunity for us to provide that detail, because that it'll probably, we're working on balancing now after today. So when we get to that point.
Okay, thank you. And then the other thing, typically in the past, when we've had these budget surveys, we've given the list of, I guess, written in information. Can we get that provided to us as well?
The open-ended responses?
Yeah, the open-ended responses.
Yeah. We're gonna have that. Yeah, we'll definitely get that to you.
That's in my inbox, and I apologize. I was on vacation last week. I did not get copies of those printed out before we came today. But we can certainly print those before we leave today, and you can all have those. And I believe the presentation and those can be put in your town council SharePoint as well.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Ms. Archer.
Just two last questions then about this is about the JOCO or the Johnston County Fire District increases. So question one, is there a certain dollar amount that we know at this time? So has it been, there's like a final number?
I think what is proposed is out there, but nothing's finalized, but it's heading towards proposal.
I'll ask Chief Raines sat on the committee with the county fire commission to be able to help discern this whole process. So I'll ask him to explain maybe what the rate structure is at this point, and then what our immediate impact to Clayton is.
Okay, for the cost share, and it's different metrics, and there's 4 metrics. I think one's call volume, one's square mileage, one's square footage, and I forget what the 4th one is. We come up with a cost share metric, and for us, it's a 68-32. So we present our budget to the county. They're going to cover 32% of it. The town's going to cover 68% of it. So it's supposed to be the cost difference to the counties, the way it's been explained. And it's supposed to come in 20% a year over 5 years until we absorb 100% of it, which if you look at today's numbers will be about $2.5 million total, right? Annually.
Annually.
Yep. But when you looked at our budgets historically, everything it costs to operate the fire department is not in our budget, right? We have general government costs like HR, finance, budget, that all of the other fire departments in the county contract with private agencies for that show in their budget. It doesn't show in our budget, right? The manager's office, we have public works, we have a lot of these different departments in town that contribute to the operation of the fire department. And so we've worked to understand what the cost of truly operating the fire department is. That also includes fuel. Our fuel is not in our cost. Our fleet's not in our cost. It's in other budgets in the town. And so working with the budget office, working with the manager's office, working with Black and Veatch, we're working to understand what it truly costs to operate the fire department. And so once we have that final number, then that final number will be submitted to the county for our budget. Last year was 7.4 million. That's what the fire department's budget was. That's not what it costs to operate the fire department. So we're working to understand the true cost of operating the fire department, and that's what we submit to the county.
Thank you. That helps clarify for me. And then I guess the second piece of that was that since that number isn't final and here we are at the beginning of budget season, do we have any idea how the timeline on that is going to correspond with our timeline for budget decisions?
Well, I talked to Todd about this, is that the non-municipal fire departments have already had to submit their budget to the county. The county is working through that now. Obviously, our budget's not finalized until council approves it. So it could be that late. But what we're trying to do is once we have a balanced budget, we're trying to submit the county with a number. At least they can work with that number. It could go up, it could go down. It's not final until council approves the budget. So, and they understand that. So hopefully as we get closer to a balanced budget, that fire department budget will zone in on exactly what that is and be able to provide a number to the county. Now, then it's a numbers game, right? What is 32% of that total operating cost? I'm sure there'll be a lot of questions from the county since our last year's budget was 7.4 million, and this year we're expecting a considerable increase when we see exactly what it costs to operate the fire department.
Thank you.
It's sort of like a cost of service study that Black and Veatch is doing for us. It's going to include all those things that Chief was talking about. IT is a huge one for fire. I mean, we don't show any IT costs in the fire department budget right now. Fleet, it's a big one. HR is a big one. So all those things folded in, what does it look like then?
Yes,
The
it's
model
almost
takes
like
that.
an enterprise fund for the fire department now, right? So,
Yeah, that's what I was going to say is there's a few of these departments now, particularly that external funding is being determined based on either budgets or other department-specific metrics, that we're having to set up cost centers and really get a better handle on exactly what it costs town-wide to be able to operate. The fire department, building inspections, we had to do similarly because of the state statute regarding how the funds from those permits can be utilized. So it's been a little bit of a different strategy for us here the last few years, but to be able to make it easier for us to be able to run these reports and provide the data to those different partners, we're having to rethink and rechange kind of how that budgeting is done. So there are a few of those items that we'll point out as we get further into the process and the budget reports get more detailed. We'll be able to kind of point out where, hey, this was zero last year, but now it has to be this, because we want to be able to fully tell the story of what it costs to provide that fire service.
and the other part is 2 new fire engines will be delivered within the next 30 days, right? There's a debt service more than likely associated with that. The county is going to pay a portion of that as well, so that will appear in our budget.
That's a good example of how this change on how the fire tax is being distributed. Our initial approach or intent was to be able to do a program where we're putting money away every year so that when the bill comes due, we're paying cash and we're not having to take debt service on. If we do it that way, the county would not pay towards those engines, but we would still be required to serve areas outside of our town. So we have made the recommendation to go ahead and do debt service. That way their proportional share is being captured in that. And we can then utilize the cash funds for other needs within the department. Big hit for us here, again, from last year, we spent a lot of time looking at financial models across the town as we were going into the reval season so that we could have the conversations we had last year and say, look, if we go at this rate, we think we're good for the next 5 years kind of thing. The 2 hits that we took that were mentioned earlier with the state health plan and then this fire tax, those were big curveballs for us. So it's forcing us to have to relook at all of those long-term financial plans, particularly on the fire service when we've got, like Chief said, 2 engines coming just in the next 30 days. That's it's $2 million, excuse me. 2 million round number. I was hoping for 1.8, but that's all right. $2 million round number for those 2 engines. Then you take into account that we've got a public safety center that'll be coming online within the next 3 years, of which we've got to be prepared to start construction hopefully next year. Those are significant costs that are going to impact our overall ability to, the cost to deliver those services. And the model or the metrics that they're utilizing currently are not working in our favor. And so that's where we're asking for some consideration, at least to have some more conversation. The current funding model that they're utilizing, there's a matrix system, and the request from the Mayor's Association has been for consideration of maintaining that model for at least 1 more year to give everybody an opportunity, because it's not just Clayton. Effectively for us, as Chief and as Tyler mentioned, essentially $500,000 a year round number less funding every single year to the point where by year 5, that's $2.5 million per year that we are not receiving in tax support, fire tax support from the county. So by our current rate, that'd be 5 pennies over the next 5 years, just to stay at the current level of service, not even adding on to the services or adding on the facilities that we're talking about. So that's just us. There are other municipalities in the town or in the county that scale may not be the same as ours in terms of dollars, but percent impact or otherwise, in some cases, maybe even worse, because they're not seeing as much growth as we are. So they are not able to at least slightly offset some of that cost. So again, bigger conversations that need to be had. Managers have been having conversations with the county manager. The mayors have been having conversations at the commissioner's level. as the budgets start to come into clearer vision and be submitted to the fire commission, I believe that's where the rubber will probably hit the road, because they'll have to start making some decisions.
Just from the county fire department perspective, the information I'm getting is that the request from the county departments for about 44 million. The revenue projection is 40 million, so there's $4 million gap there. And that doesn't include the municipal budgets that haven't been submitted yet.
So just a quick question, just for clarification for me. Are you finding the county open to these conversations?
I think that's more at his level than it's at my level.
I will say, county manager has had 2 different calls with the county, all the town and city managers within the county to hear this. He's relayed that information to the commissioners and the fire commission, I believe. A few other towns have submitted letters. We submitted one initially when this was going through, just raising some concerns with regards to the structure of that and the immediate impact it would be to Clayton. So I believe it is something that having the conversations at your all's political level is probably a good recommendation. I'm looking at the mayor to hopefully bail me out here in this conversation a little bit, because that's outside of my purview.
I think next week is our meeting with Johnson County Mayor Association and the county commissioners, just to help them understand the perspective and the impacts on every municipality. I know at our last Johnson County Mayor Association meeting, the mayor of Micro was, he was being jovial, but he was being serious at the same time. And he said, we're going to be owing the county about $18,000. And that's like, we don't even have that much in the bank. We're called Micro for a reason, and it's because we're real small. And, of course, he was joking, but he was saying, like, this is way out of scale. And I think for us, it's a genuine concern when you are looking at a deficit of $2.5 million because the county has decided it's time for municipalities to, subsidize all the other county operations that are not municipal, right? And I just think that's too big a hit for anybody, any municipality. And so we're going to go next week and present our case and hopefully, see what the county commissioners want to do. Mr. Casey.
A lot of good points. Can we get some talking points on this? And if it truly is a detriment to us, seeing how public safety is number one, I think we need to include some sort of breakdown, because it seems pretty complicated and it's going to be hard to explain to the typical citizen. And obviously there's 2 different issues. Obviously there's where it's projecting right now. Obviously that could change, and then what the reality is going to be later on. And if that reality changes and it is an impact to our community, respectfully, but we need to kind of educate people why and how, and let them know how this is derived and where it was, what was the cause of it,
And who's responsible for what hit we're taking.
Yeah. And it's a lot because, we are probably not the only municipality that is bringing into the fleet 2 new fire apparatus, fire trucks at a total of $2 million for both of them. And we were counting on the funds that's already established to help pay for this. And now that is looking like it's going to be taken away or decreased tremendously. And that should be a concern to everybody.
Yeah, I think to the mayor's point, I think the meeting in a couple weeks, next week, will be very telling with regards to whether we have to go based on our worst case assumptions, which is kind of the vein that we've been operating in. Todd and I have been discussing, at least in terms of trying to whittle that 7.3 million down. If there's some additional relief there, then again, when we get to the point where we're recommending what things to cut and what things to keep, there may be last minute, if they're not last minute, but whenever this final decision's made, we may be able to come back to you and say, hey, we've got X amount of dollars that we will be receiving from the fire fire tax. So, which items do you think we should add back in? I will say, from the county's perspective, the intent is noble, the intent is good. The strategy that they're trying to do is to make sure that all the unincorporated areas particularly have base level staffing and equipment and training available to them to be able to serve those areas. The challenge and the concern that we've relayed to them, particularly for Clayton, while they look at our numbers and they see big millions of dollars and think, oh, look at all the money they've got coming in, they can absorb something like a $2.5 or even $500,000 a year. Every single one of our departments is experiencing the same growth pressures that the fire department is. And to effectively, from the slide that Todd had earlier, where our total revenue increased revenue projections for this year for the general fund was about $2.5 million. Effectively, what you're saying is no other departments can get anything into the next 5 years if that's about how much is going to be going up. And that is not a realistic expectation for us. And unfortunately, the only other way to allow and to manage that growth is to increase the revenues. And that is not the route that I believe any of us want to go. So next week will be, I guess, telling for us to be able to understand whether there may be some opportunities here. But again, it's a significant impact to us, and not just this year. It'd be ongoing and one that we would have to frankly re-strategize all of our economic and financial models that we've done so far, including our CIP.
And, to your point too, the county can evaluate Clayton with all this big money and so forth. But I mean, people can also evaluate the county as well, right? The county is sitting on over $200 million in cash. So why is the burden of all this being placed on municipalities? And that's a question that we're going to get the answer to in 2 weeks or next week. Yeah. All right. Anybody else?
And we will share that.
And we will share that. Yes. Thank you. All right.
Anybody else?
So I think from a feedback perspective, again, we'll get these documents uploaded to the SharePoint for you, as well as the open-ended responses from the survey. If you want to take a look at any of the funding packages, like Todd said, we filtered out the things that were, I guess I'll say, previously decided that have to go the way our system is set up. They have to be funding packages, but you guys have already made a decision on either debt service or otherwise that need to be added. But these are the discretionary items that are being requested. Several positions, several, I'll say, expanded services or new initiatives. The preemption being one that, again, we're looking at different strategies there. We've been looking at grant opportunities and otherwise as it pertains to all of these items as well, to see if there's any opportunity to maybe solidify some outside dollars to either reduce or completely offset the costs that are being presented, as well as, prioritizing things that are one-time costs versus reoccurring costs to be able to make sure that any decisions or recommendations that are made this year aren't going to just continue to be put us even further behind in the outgoing years. So any input you want to provide, if you want to provide it directly to me and copy Todd, happy to sit down and discuss any of the items with you all. We did our best, I think, to try to make sure the descriptions on that list are relatively straightforward, but as always, we like to use a lot of acronyms and some other things around here. So if there's something that you're not sure what the ask is, certainly feel free to reach out and we'll get you any information. I will say too, the staff that put these all in, they're required to put justification. Some of it obviously is just qualitative, just verbal writing. Others that have data that can support them, we're able to provide that as well. So if you have any questions, we'll certainly provide any information we can provide.
That's a good point. Yeah. A lot of folks did a really good job at providing attachments, data with their requests. So.
Awesome.
All right. Thank you all.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Todd.
And if I could just take a quick thank you for Todd and for Laney for managing all this. I know they've spent a lot of time and effort just trying to herd the cats in a lot of ways, but then also be able to utilize the information provided to try to get us on a path where we can have something recommended to you here next month. So appreciate all the hard work that they're doing in the budget office and for all the staff that have been providing that data and information to them, because again, the needs are there. The growth pressures are on everybody, but we hope to be able to make the best out of what we got.
All right. So we are a bit ahead of schedule. We can call for a 10-minute break if you'd like one, or we can proceed. Wishes of the council. Keep going. Good.
Sure.
Okay. All right. Okay. Okay. Well, we've never been 45 minutes ahead of schedule, so I'm just like appalled. I'm like, wow. We're good. Okay, well then, if that's the case, we'll do the CIP project scoring, and we'll bring Christopher up. Okay.
Okay, good afternoon, Mayor and members of council. Christopher Gallant, Capital Program Manager. So this presentation, I'll make it brief. It's really just kind of recapping where we ended for the CIP based on all the council points as well as the staff points added together. So kind of as a typical schedule, I'll kind of go through as an agenda. So the annual process, I always like to go through that one slide that shows where we are in the process. And then I'll go through that list of committed projects. Should be the same list that was seen in a previous work session. So that's that kind of moving everything to a committed bucket that we are proceeding with and trying to make sure Davenport includes as part of their financial analysis. And then the next category will be the ranked projects. So this one, just to make it a little more digestible, I've broken it into 3 categories just so it wasn't one large list. So just kind of show you where the council points were assigned overall, a top 10 just to kind of make it, again, a shorter list, and then the remaining projects. We'll go any discussions or questions. So the typical slide, so we're at step kind of 5 in this, reviewing it pretty much at this meeting. Just before it, you all sent the points that I accumulated together, put into these spreadsheets. And our next step is really to incorporate in a budget rate model. That's the Davenport process. And that will be this month. And then, May, June is when we're going towards the budget/CIP adoption. So the first list, this is the committed project list. So I would say one thing on here, there's 23 shown here, but there's probably an argument for a couple of these that really have sub-projects to them. So it's probably more than 23. So there's a pretty hefty list. We are working on really all of them, right? We're making progress on everything. Some are in the early stages, some are further along. But yeah, so these are committed. It's a perfect score of 500, so we're not rescoring them. We didn't put any town council points towards it. So they're just kind of being fully worked on, and then these are the ones that will go to Davenport and say, what's the affordability of this over a period of time, 5 years, 10 years? So the next list, this is we're getting into the ranked projects. So what I did was I stripped the list of anything that didn't have any council points towards it, just to show you where all the points kind of went. Overall, 15 points by each council member and mayor. That's shown at the very bottom as a total. And one thing I will note out of this, you'll see on the right side, a lot of the staff priorities kind of aligned with what council priorities were. So that's kind of one thing I noticed overall. There's a few kind of down at the bottom right that you'll see priority, number 15, 27, 28, and 30. There were some points that were assigned to those lower rated projects to boost them up a little bit. So that's kind of where we landed for where all the points went along to the projects. The next one, so this is kind of the top 10. I took, reduced the list so it was digestible. So you'll see that one thing I noticed, the staff priority rank, there was a lot of overlap. If you see like 2 and 3, 6, 7, 8, because they all kind of had the same scores, right? So there was some overlap. So really kind of the council points really kind of diversified it a little bit and gave it its own ranking, as you'll see on the far right, where it's kind of more in sequential, order, except for the last couple. Technically, the last couple really is 4 projects. There were 4 together, but I just want to show the list as 10, just to make it a little bit easier. But all these projects should be familiar. I know that you've reviewed them through the ClearGov and as well as the spreadsheets. And then this is kind of the remaining list. This is kind of from that 11 down. There was a lot of overlap. If you look on the right, you'll see a lot of overlap where points kind of had the same number. So, these are quite far down the list at this point. As I mentioned, we have a lot of committed projects that we're working on first. So the overall goal would be, I'll go back one slide, is to kind of put the top one in this bucket. If there's room, move it to the committed bucket, right? So at least that committed bucket stays very relatively stable and that we're continuing to make progress on those and new ones go in gradually rather than the whole list reshaping each year, which doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And that's all I really had. So it's really just kind of letting everybody know where we kind of landed from a prioritization standpoint.
Okay, questions or comments?
I have a quick comment. Can you just make sure that it's clear about our committed projects versus these and how that's, because we've kind of adjusted and changed just a whit bit, make sure everybody understands. It's maybe viewing too.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like I said, the committed ones are what we're working on actively. It's also on a transparency page. Those are the kind of ones that will be on that transparency page, showcasing what efforts are going through on them, right? So everything that's committed should have a staff member on it, and we should be making some kind of progress. Now, as I kind of mentioned in a previous presentation, it doesn't mean the project will be completely built, right? It means that we have a commitment to starting to work on it. We still have to validate it. Any project, we need to get to a certain point, understand the budget, bring the council, see if everything's going in the right direction. Sometimes it might be that the project has to pause for a while, right? There might be some shifting of priorities within that committed list, but there should be activity on it and justifying it, and at least a presentation to council to see where we're at. So that's kind of the point of the committed list versus the rated list is kind of more future planning. The ranking is more, so we see what's coming up next in that list. Does that clarify? Okay.
Go ahead, Ms. Archer. No, I was just going to ask him to pull the list back up with scoring so I could get a better visual.
The top 10 or so, or you're talking about the committed? Nope.
There's the committed and the
Like right there. In the meantime, you can ask questions.
Well, I was actually just going to make a comment and express gratitude because I know as a resident, before I got onto council, there was nothing like this. And I know the CIP process and the scoring just seemed kind of like a mystery, and it seemed kind of like a moving target from year to year. So I really wanted to thank our mayor and I think our town manager, because you all have really gotten us to this point of the evolution of the town and this process. And I love it. I think it's clear. I think it's residents are able to see where we're at. Council's able to see where we're at. And it seems to get just kind of better and clearer every year. So thank you.
I want to add to that. The process you did this year for me to clarify that other category, if you want to, can you show that other category? The committed.
Yep.
That was so helpful to pull that out because you're not looking at this huge list and balancing the committed projects. For me, that was extremely helpful. I really appreciate that process.
And it will only enhance, especially with transparency module, that it'll be more visual and to show where are we on each single one of these, right? So, and it'll be accessible to the public, accessible to everybody.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I was just going to expand on that to Chris's point. The life cycle of these projects, I mean, some of these that are up here are really early in due diligence, I'll say. Some of them are at the point where they're already, Hoka Ellington will be wrapping up here
Yeah, that one's coming off.
Momentarily. So to Chris's point, as things drop off and capacity is there so that we can see, that's really the intent of getting that scoring and having that I'll say on deck, what projects are next ones up so that we can start looking at either resource planning or if there's funding opportunities that are coming up that we feel as though we need to go ahead and start getting ahead of and say, have some preliminary engineering done so that the Shotwell project that I believe was the next one up on deck kind of thing. If we've got to do a little bit of investigation on that to make sure we've got the project correctly scoped, correctly, I'll say at the correct scale of cost and all that, that we are ready in case there's an opportunity that comes in front of us that we can, take advantage of some other help. So, kudos to Chris and his team for working through all of this. I know it's been a lot of herding cats and trying to make sense of some things, but there's a lot of great work that goes on there and the team that he's got, and we appreciate all the recognition there, but it's kind of what you do. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Very much. All right, anyone else?
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Certainly, you probably have explained it before. The project number, how do you go about giving the labels and the numbers?
So that one, we have a few categories. It's kind of like public works, cultural arts, public safety. So just a few that first letters, and then it's just numerical by the year. So at least when I see it, I see if there's a seventh project on 2026, so I can quickly tell if it's been on the list for a long time or if it's a relatively new project. So, yep, not a problem. Awesome.
I just want to say a long time for these projects, for those that have lived these, many of these projects are going to be 10 years in the making. So a few years from now, if you still see a 2024 on the list or something like that, it's not that we're not trying hard and we're not trying to advance everything. It's just, some of them are more complex. It just takes some time.
And money. Yeah. All right. Anyone else? All right. Chris, thank you so much.
Thank you.
We can. Yeah. Break. Yeah. Yeah, we're going to take a 10-minute break.
Concerning.
All right, thank you. I'm going to call our meeting back to order. Up next on the agenda is going to be the water sewer initial rate presentation.
Good evening, Mayor, members of Town Council. Joshua Baird, Water Resources Director. For the next little bit, I'll be presenting on the preliminary analysis of a 5-year financial plan for the water and sewer enterprise. We work with consultants from Black & Veatch to put this together. They've been doing their models for several years now and help us out with the initial analysis and getting everything dialed in. And then I'll be presenting some preliminary analysis, and then certainly as the next few weeks and months pass on, we'll be dialing it in further and really looking to come back to you with some formal recommendations. Today will be just kind of a preliminary. I think there's an hour or so on the agenda. I don't plan to speak for an hour, but I do want to give some background. I won't get too deep, but also I do want to be in a position to provide at least some high-level information just as to where, how the model works, and as we come up with recommendations, reasonings behind those. Let's see here. All right, so just a quick update. I'm going to give a little overview of the fund, some preliminary forecast information, talk about some scenarios that we ran, and then some time for discussion. All right, an overview and summary of just the utility and where we are at today. We have just over 12,000 water accounts, less sewer accounts. We're just over 11,000 sewer accounts, over 140 miles of water distribution lines and pipes, and 170 miles of wastewater sewer collection system pipes that we maintain. We have one current wastewater treatment plant, and obviously closing in on completion of a 6 million gallons per day, the Sam's Branch water reclamation facility. Generally, we're just over $38 million in revenues, just to give you some size of the utility for sake of an update this year. So obviously, it is an enterprise fund. It is a separate utility that runs itself. It's dedicated to the utility, and so somewhat different than the general fund. There is no revenue from tax. It's not subsidized by the general fund. It is an enterprise, and obviously with that comes some established goals that have been set for quite some time here. Just kind of walking through these. Obviously, the fund is dedicated to the utility. It's not used for other purposes. It's not used for Parks and Rec. It's not used to subsidize other. It is dedicated solely to water and sewer for the town. It is self-sufficient in its financial capacity, so that there's not necessarily other inputs. Rec fees or shelters aren't contributing to it. Again, tax aren't contributing to it. Also, looking at the overall fund goals, it's important that we're looking for adequate reserves. Obviously, there's some uncertainty now. Just think of gas, the war in Iran, things that are going on. So we, in setting up the rate structure and setting up the models, we want to be sure that we're looking for a situation to have adequate reserves. Long-term financial stability, we want to be sure we're planning for the future. Clayton's system, a lot of it is relatively new, and we have certainly some areas in the downtown, the core of town, that we're starting to see that we need a lot of replacement of that water and sewer infrastructure, but there's a lot of other new areas that we need to be planning for in the future, that when those come time and everything's got an end of its lifespan, that we're in a position that we can maintain those, we can replace those as we have more and more pipes, both distribution and collection system, that will need replacement. A reasonable nexus between charges and cost. Obviously, being in a position to where we're not charging for the service that we provide, and that connection, that nexus between a service that we provide and then what we charge for, and being sure that it's most as equitable as we can have it. Obviously, we do have 2 large industrial users here that have certain waste streams, and it does cost us more to treat them, and so the overall goal and the fund being set up where our users are paying for their share of what it costs for us to treat their water, and having that rate structure set up for that connection in place. And then, I don't think I hit on it, but just fully supported by user fees. Again, there's no other inputs in terms of revenue. Went backwards. So just looking at a 5-year plan, obviously you've got your cash in, that's those monies coming in, you got your cash out, those monies going out. So revenues on the left, the expenditures on the right. When it comes to revenue sources, we have revenue under the existing rates, both that base and that commodity charge based on usage. System development fees, which I'll talk about a little bit more here in a little bit. Those are restricted funds and very restricted by statutes, how we use them, how we charge, what we can charge. And then the way Black & Veatch does set up our model, there is a rate stabilization reserve that is there to try to even out the rates over time such that they're not seesawing all over the place. And so there is some stabilization to them. And so when we're looking at those revenue, that factors into the overall rate structure as well. Obviously, cash out expenditures, O&M requirements, staff, chemical for our treatment processes, electrical. We are that bulk purchase water system from the county, so paying the county for water. Those are the O&M requirements that would be included in the expenditures, any debt service related to our CIP, any cash financing for capital. The back to that O&M reserve, being able to be sure that we have enough cash on hand to be able to maintain our operations if there was some issue. And then the rate stabilization plays into it as well. So obviously it's a balancing act. We are required by the state to have a balanced budget, and obviously if money is going out are greater than those monies coming in, then some type of adjustment is needed to be sure that we have that balanced act and appropriate balanced budget. So talk about revenue projections, and this is really sensitive here. So what money do we plan, or what do we expect to collect over the upcoming period? This thing keeps jumping. So current rate structure, obviously we have inside and outside, in and out of town for both water and sewer. That is structured 2 parts, and I think there's been some discussion about it. Obviously the fixed monthly base charge for ultimately just being connected to the town system. So that's that charge for staff, for customer service, for us to maintain that service, any debt that's spread out amongst that base charge. That charge is not based on your usage. That is just to be connected to the system, and the operations and maintenance that has to go on with just simply being connected regardless of how much you use. Second part of that bill being the commodity, the usage amount that does vary based on, and that rate varies based on how much you use. We do have a tiered structure for water. Obviously, the more water, it changes the per gallon rate to really encourage conservation and to set the tiered structure appropriately. All right, so talking about some key assumptions here for the planning period, which is this coming up here. The total number of water accounts we projected to increase by 2.6%. Same for the number for the sewer accounts. Sewer flow volumes to increase by 2%. This does align with historical trends and also some of the forecasts that we've done. Obviously, we don't have a crystal ball. There's a lot of factors that play into this, but we certainly take the best information available that we have at the time of the rate setting to be able to make a recommendation. Things could change. Again, we're in some uncertainty right now with obviously fuel, and but we're certainly doing our best to forecast where we're going to be and what we need so that we can provide the most accurate recommendation to you. Another source of revenue I mentioned earlier is system development fees. These fees are specifically for that new capacity in the system. It is charged to new connections. Our fee structure is based on the meter size. Statutorily, we must study those once every 5 years. And the statutory requirements are that there is a max that you can charge. So you can't charge beyond that max. We did a study, started the first, I guess the rates from that study were implemented in January of 2024 was the most recent study. Some of you were a part of those conversations, and at the time, the decision was made not to necessarily go to the max. That study did show that we could increase from where we were at in the 2018 study. We chose a step scale where ultimately the system development fees for a single family residential home with what we consider a 5/8 meter was going up about $1,000 per year. The max on that study showed that you could charge about $14,000 for a single family home at that 5/8 inch meter. And this year we're right at 10. The intent would be to continue on that step plan that council had worked through with staff, and we would ramp that up another $1,000 next year. So just keeping that in mind, and obviously over the next few years, we will be looking to do another study and to see where that goes. So wanted to just provide an update on system development fees. Unless anything changes, we certainly would intend to keep that step plan moving forward.
One thing just to clarify, because I know it's come up, and I think I even saw it in some of the budget survey comments. Those first two columns, those are the existing customers. That's the costs that they're offsetting for the system. That last one, that is the developers and the home builders. That is how we capture the cost for them to be able to attach to our system and have access to the water and sewer facilities that we have. As Joshua mentioned, that is statutory. There's a very specific methodology that we have there, but that is our opportunity for the development to help pay for the impacts to the system.
And then not shown on this slide, the other is there has been some direct appropriations that the state has the state has awarded the town. Those are factored into it, a total of about 20 million. There was some 6 million tied to some other agreements, and then 14 million. So that also is factored in here. Typically that's not assumed or assumed that we would get, but we do know that we've got evidence of those, and that is factored into certainly helping out with the capital improvement plan that the utility has. I'll jump through this. This is just kind of a summary of accounts and where we're heading. Again, based on some assumptions and forecasts that we have done to look deep into the growth of utility, both historical and where we're going. Do the same for volumes, and then ultimately revenues. So just kind of I'll bring your attention to this, the last line here, just kind of the total expected revenues, just shy of 50 million this year, and continuing to move up as the utility continues to grow. All right, so revenue requirement projections. So getting into some additional assumptions on the revenue, obviously the O&M that I spoke of earlier. There's assumptions in what we're going to need for staffing, the chemical. We're using the FY27 O&M as a baseline. That's what staff submitted in ClearGov to Todd and the budget office, as well as the town manager's office. And then from there, continuing to forecast out based on things that we know are changing with new facilities coming online, pump stations coming offline. There's a lot of assumptions in that O&M as to where we need to be over the next 5 years that staff have worked to really dial that in. Capital improvement program and expenditures related to it. Chris did a great job sharing just the general fund, how it is set up on a scoring system and points based with some points and input from town council. The utilities, electric and water and sewer, are on a different type system. They are still data driven and technical. They're more risk based, whether it be a water line that needs to be put in for redundancy or looping, compared to, say, maybe some additional capacity. There is a system, it's risk-based, and the ultimate goal of those two systems are to look at what projects are the most risky, and so what is a failure mechanism, whether we run out of capacity, whether we lose half the town without a water for a day, or whether it just be a single homeowner or neighborhood. That's all into a scoring system, and the ultimate goal is to take those most risky projects, those that have a big impact, a large consequence if they were to fail, as well as that they're likely to happen, and we want to move them on a scale to where if they were to fail, they're not a very large consequence, it's pretty minor, you might not even know about it, and then also it's not likely that it would be to happen. So it's based on the consequence of failure as well as the likelihood of failure. That's a system that the town staff goes through, and we're able to come up with recommendations on the CIP. And that is where the CIP for the utility fund is driven by reducing that risk, whether it be outage, lost capacity, whatever. That's the ultimate goal of the CIP and how that's factored in. Obviously, debt service. The town has taken out debt for large projects, capacity projects. We've got loans on the Sam's Branch project. And so that's got to be factored into the revenue that is required to be able to pay back that debt service. The timing of when it comes on, existing, any additional debt that the town may take on. And then also in looking at the total revenue that's required, performance metrics. And this really gets into the overall health of the system, health of the utility. So two key metrics that are evaluated, and I'll show you on some of the slides here. The days cash on hand, and that's ultimately just looking at your unrestricted cash and investments. Your system development fees are not to go into that because they are restricted to certain projects, but your unrestricted cash, you divide it ultimately by your annual operating expenses and then annualize that on a per day basis, such that you come up with basically how long could you operate in the event that you had no more revenue. The town and its financial consultants had deemed that a best target is 215 days. Another key metric for the overall health of the utility and health of the system is a debt service coverage ratio, and that is what your expected net revenues are divided by your debt service, and ultimately looking to see how that net revenue income compares to the debt that you owe on a yearly basis. A measure of one would be just you are exactly bringing enough net revenue to cover your expected debt service. Anything below one would be that you're not bringing enough revenue to cover your debt service for that year. So town's financial consultants has deemed a target of 1.5 to be the best there. So where are we starting from? Operating fund cash on hand. This is that unrestricted cash, 35.1 million. Capital balance, 31.8. This is somewhat restricted. It's considered unrestricted cash for capital projects. And then the system development fees, the revenue from that, again, that's that developer for new connections onto the system for us to build that capacity into the system for new connections. And again, that is very restricted on what we can use those monies for. We can't use it for staffing. We can't use it for electrical or chemical. It has to be specific projects for capacity into the system, building that capacity. All right, so getting into some details that, apologize. Getting into some details on the major cost drivers, looking at this next, I just set it down. Looking at the next 5-year plans here, water supply. So that's the next big hurdle for us and ticket as we work through what is the next water supply project. We've, I will say, got wastewater figured out, but we're on a good path for wastewater. We have the Sam's Branch project. We recently, council adopted the agreement with Raleigh to extend the agreement for 1.75 with Raleigh through 2040. That, from even a planning scenario, that's an update in this year's, we were able to push out phase 2 of Sam's Branch into some later years, and that allows us to really focus on a water supply project here. So that's certainly a big driver as to this year's financial plan, 5-year plan. The increase in O&M cost, there's some assumptions in there. Obviously, we are taking on a larger and newer facility. There's 2-3 large additional regional pump stations that we're going to be kicking up to really move this flow around from the existing plant to the new plant. And so that certainly is being factored in this. The debt service for Sam's Branch, that's going to be coming online just shy of 70 million over the next 5 years related to Sam's Branch and the debt service associated with that, as well as some other projects that the town has taken on in the past. And then obviously looking to maintain sufficient reserves and stability when it comes to current war in Iran, fuel, economy, where it's going. So key drivers right there that I think played a significant factor into the plans that we'll be putting before you. So I mentioned the water supply project, and additional water supply certainly factored into this. There's two large projects that are in this, and there's been quite a bit of discussion around the timing of these that affect it. We ran and looked at multiple different scenarios and a lot of coordination trying to work with the county on this. So there's two that I'll walk you through to get you up to speed and familiar with them. I'm actually going to start at the bottom. I apologize. I'm going to not start at the top, but the Lower Neuse Water Supply Project, that is a joint project that we've discussed for many years with Johnston County. It is an intake down near Richardson Bridge Road, almost in Wayne County. The initial phase of that project would be a 12 million gallons per day facility. And looking at the projections for both the town and the county, really makes sense that we would be about half of that in terms of what additional capacity it brings. And so the scenarios to date have been that it would be a 50-50 shared project, and then come out of it, we would get 50% of the capacity. The total cost to the town, that's not the overall project, that is just the town's portion, somewhere between $300 and $335 million for that joint project with the county. The county current timeline for that project is a completion of 2033. We have not formally gone into any agreement with the county for this project. That's a big number, and there's also some concern looking at the numbers that we can't make it to 2033. And the other project that the town has looked at and had significant conversations with is what we're calling the Pool Road Interconnection. This is a new pipeline to Raleigh, and a total of 4 million gallons per day with the city of Raleigh that we could get through 2040. There has been no formal agreement signed, but there has been verbal agreement of a terms and conditions sheet. So good conversations and on a good path. The timeline for that moving forward, we could have that completed in 2029, which aligns when we really need the water. The town currently owns 6.1 million gallons per day, and as we projected that out, sometime in that 2030 time range is when we need to have another project on board. So these are two projects that we have really worked hard to try to slide around, try to figure out what is best. On its current path, the Lower Neuse project with the county not being completed till 2033 certainly gives the town some concern as far as being in a position to have enough capacity through that timeline. And that's where we have really been working and looking at the Pool Road Interconnection project. One is being able to bridge the gap between when the Lower Neuse project could be done, as well as we feel that there's a significant benefit to having that redundancy and having additional options other than just being a bulk purchaser from the county. So those are two projects here that really are driving a lot of the next 5 years. And what you'll see on some preliminary results is that we are proceeding with both of these projects. We're proceeding with the Pool Road project to be in a position to bridge the gap until 2033, and then also still working towards a joint project through 2033. And we think there's some options there. There's going to take some coordination with the county, and I'll speak a little bit more to that shortly. But from a financial planning standpoint, the worst case scenario conservative planning here is that we would be taking on both of these projects in the similar time frame, which is certainly not an ideal scenario from a financial standpoint. Again, we've got some thoughts and ideas that I'll speak to here shortly. Another driver of the CIP in what we've got in there, and is certainly working to get updated as we move forward, is as we grow and we expand our utility out into other areas, as we have volunteer annexations come in, we are extending our service area out and taking on new undeveloped areas. With that often comes a transfer of county water lines or county assets. We currently have some what I'll call donut holes throughout town. There's been some created, and there's a lot of inconsistency. And as we grow, we have the desire to keep that kind of halo clean of where we intercept and where we bring in that water, that bulk water from the county. And as we continue to grow out further and further, it makes sense to move our metering points and our inputs from current locations and moving them out. And there's been a lot of discussion here recently. There's a current policy that is several years old, maybe even early 2000s or late 1990s, about how these assets are transferred as we grow. And there's some financial assumptions in there. It takes into certain depreciation. It takes into what the cost of it is. The county has a desire to rethink that policy. And so some of our initial numbers and financial assumptions related to, as we grow, what we will be needing to pay the county to basically transfer these assets so that they are in our system, so that we are one kind of clean halo utility and not having donuts, or that's a county pipeline, no, that's a town pipeline. There's some concern from staff. The numbers appear to be increasing, and also not just based on the depreciation of the assets, but also there appears to be a desire to actually pay for the customers themselves, and so adding into some draft policies. So we've got a list of questions back to staff on a draft policy. I know the intent was to take some updated policies to Board of Commissioners in April, but that certainly does play a factor, as there's some assumptions in the model of what we would be spending to transfer these assets, and the actual cost of that under a new policy certainly has increased. Exact amount appears to be not necessarily known right now, but it is a concern of ours and something that we're watching, and it could affect the overall model as it moves forward. All right, so as I alluded to, it's kind of small here, but hopefully you could read it. This scenario, and we've ran several of these and looking at them, but to be able to be sure that we have water and be sure we're in a position to continue to grow and serve residents, this is where these two projects are lining up, both the Pool Road and the Lower Neuse water supply. As you can see, so this is just for water. And let's see if this works here. All right, so this road right here, revenue increase here would be the anticipated water rate increases year by year. So we would be looking at about an 18% increase on water going out to 21. And this is, again, where these projects are overlapping, both the Pool Road interconnect as well as the Lower Neuse water supply. And then the two key metrics that I mentioned are down at the bottom of these tables. The days cash on hand, again, we're shooting for that desired of 215. Our policy, I believe right now, correct me if I'm wrong, Robert, is it does say a minimum of 185, but ideally 215. That just helps our bond ratings and everything with the agencies. And then debt service coverage right here, so that you can see even in the latter years of the planning cycle here, the debt service coverage ratio gets less than ideal, even with those rates for water. On the wastewater side of things, looking at the 7% that 5, and some of that is some of the additional debt service is starting to kick back off and paying off that, and then starting to stabilize a little bit more. What you don't see compared to last year here in this line is the phase 2 of Sam's Branch. In previous years, we have been planning on that having to kick off relatively soon after completion of the first phase, but because of that agreement with Raleigh, kicking that back to 2040, it does give us some time. We're not pushing it back to 2040, but it certainly allows us to focus on a water project. And you're going to see, just kind of coming out of the gate here, there's some concerns with the debt service coverage in the initial years, and then we start to get a little bit better in the latter part of the planning period. So from a combined standpoint, you're at the 11.3% going into next year. We are meeting the absolute minimum, not necessarily the targets, but the minimum in regards to days cash on hand as well as debt service coverage ratio. I believe last year when we were looking at the planning horizon, we were around 12% is kind of where the analysis showed last year. So not far off from that, but you would ultimately be looking at 11.3, 10.4, 11.1, 12, and 12, assuming that we have to do these projects on top of each other and everything lines up in the worst case scenario. Let's see here. You know what? I figured it out. I needed the mouse for later, and that is what. So total really capital under that scenario over the 5 years, significant, just shy of that $500 million. You can see how a proposed breakdown of financing would be revenue bonds, SRFs, hopefully for grants. Obviously there's none in here now, but hopefully there could be some found, SDF, and then cash financed if we were to actually have to do both of these projects and move them on top of each other. So under this scenario, from a bill impact, looking at those rates, 11.3, it's about $15 for an average user per month for this increase. So as I alluded to, these two projects are really driving the rates, really driving the scenario. We believe that there's some options. We believe that if we were able to defer the joint county project of the Lower Neuse Water Supply Program, if we could defer it out several years and just do the Raleigh connection, then it certainly makes the rate somewhat more manageable. Doing so, though, would be really the town and the county working to potentially share that 4 million gallons per day of Raleigh. And so that is a scenario that could help the rate scenario, could bring them down some, where we're spreading out these costs. Yes, the 4 million gallons per day with Raleigh is not in perpetuity. It is only leased. It's only leased through 2040. And so there's significant infrastructure to be built for just a temporary, but it does allow, it fills a gap, and it allows the larger project that is $750 million to be pushed out, for the schedule to be widened, for delivery methods to be updated, where it does make it more manageable. And so we believe that there is some significant conversations and opportunities there for both the town and the county. To date, there has not been, we've not made much traction with that. I think there's some concern over paying for capacity that ultimately does go away. We do recognize that, but we also don't see, one, that we can just do the Lower Neuse Water Supply Project and be done by 2033. We don't see that we have enough water until then. And two, we don't see that we can, these rates, we don't know how sustainable they are in terms of doing these two projects on top of each other. So moving forward, we're continuing some conversations. We're still at the table working with the county, with some of their consultants, and trying to figure out what is best for the region, for us, for our ratepayers, and certainly believe that these numbers can come down Again, this is one of, I think, the worst case scenario. Our goal would be able to come up with some solution where we get them down into the single digits, and we're in a position that we can sustainably still have water to grow, still work together, as well as get a new connection with Raleigh that does provide us the redundancy that we feel like we need, and some additional opportunities other than just being a bulk purchaser from the county. One other, let's see here, just checking my notes to be sure I didn't leave anything out here, and I'll wrap it up. But one other note is the county's bulk rates, us being a bulk purchaser, they're anywhere from 8 to 11% going up. So when it comes to water, and we're looking at these numbers, keep in mind too that the rates that we pay to purchase that water are going up anywhere from 8 to 11%. And so that's outside of our control. Obviously, not producing that water ourselves, we are subject to then having to react to that increase by the county. And so I wanted to put that metric before you as well when we're looking at these, that the cost of water to us is going up 8 to 11%, and then how we have to react to that in our rate model and information. So before we get into discussion, and this is why I brought the mouse, I wanted to share, so Richard Livingston, our utility analyst, has helped put together just kind of an easy little a dashboard looking at some rates, some historical rates about where we've been, looking at CPI, and then being able to compare to some other utilities from around the state. UNC does a utility dashboard where they're collecting all the rates, and so they're there for comparison. And so he was able to pull some data together, and could certainly look at different scenarios here, but just kind of show a couple things to get you get your basis here. Clayton's rate, and this is based off of a kind of an average customer. I forget the exact gallons we used here, but Clayton's bill would be this here in this dark blue line. CPI from looking at all user water and wastewater utilities is in the the lighter gray dash line, and then a median of North Carolina utilities is shown in the green line here. And as you can see, for many years, Clayton has been below the North Carolina median. Started to really catch up in 2020. For several years, the town was below that, deferred a lot of projects, certainly deferred quite a bit of cost replacement, and there is some catch up. You can see that it does go above that now, and some of that is likely just making up for some of the projects and making up for where we have been below a North Carolina median average there. One thing that I'd like to point out, excuse me, it's difficult here. If I turn off I'll try to talk with. If I turn off the North Carolina state median and just look at some comparable utilities, obviously some spaghetti there, but a couple that I thought were somewhat comparable for reference is Pittsboro, Johnston County. Let's see here if I can turn some of these off. In terms of development pressure, I'll leave Holly Springs in there as well. In terms of development pressure, growing, small utilities that certainly have some impact. You can see that we're not necessarily out of line. I think that higher one above us is Pittsboro. Obviously, there are challenges with Chatham Park and things that are going on as well. But as you can see, that it's not just us that are facing these pressures. It's not just the town of Clayton that is seeing the increased cost in all that we do. And obviously, we are looking to make the best decisions and all. But we have obviously cost to us, and we try to minimize those. But it is a utility-wide pressure. It is a utility-wide hurdle as we're working to keep these rates affordable, keep everything in line, as the cost of us to do business continues to rise. And so we've got this here, certainly can chat through it, and can run multiple scenarios, but I'm sure you guys are tired of hearing me talk, so I'll open up for discussion or any questions or comments.
All right, thank you, Joshua. Any questions or comments from council? Mr. Casey.
Thanks, Joshua. Regarding the Pool Road option, so you said that deal is with Wake County for 4 million gallons per day, and that's supposed to, I guess, they didn't foresee going past 2029, or is that just what they're willing to commit to, and there would be a renegotiation after that? Or?
It's with City of Raleigh, so City of Raleigh, and there's some details to that, and that we would, there's some capital improvement projects that they need to do to bring it closer, and then the pipeline that we would, Pritchard Road, Old Smithfield, connecting in on Pool Road. But 2040 is kind of aligned with our wastewater agreement. The current verbal terms is also that there would be a couple options for renewal. The rates do go up significantly for that lease capacity after that renewal. The intent is to come on, get off of it. So there's a little bit more pain in those renewal periods, but it's really about to what capacity they've got. Obviously, they're booming, growing. They're serving a lot of merger towns as well. And that was the timeline to which their staff were comfortable, feeling confident that they had some excess capacity that they could share and help a partner out.
Okay, and would we be responsible for 4 million even if we didn't need 4 million? Would we be paying for 4 million even if we didn't need 4 million? How does that work?
Those are the terms we're negotiating right now. First things first was we had to figure out the technical aspect of it, of how we could get the water here and what it would take to do that. Now we've got a term sheet in front of them of how that would work. Certainly the intent would not have to pay for all 4 million gallons from a capacity charge or capital charge with the way they're structured. They had a study done that tells them what they need to charge for some of that. So those are the discussions that we're having right now to try to finalize the decision or an agreement.
Okay, thank you. And do we know, I know this is a broad question, so I'm just going to ask it anyway because I think it's kind of resonates with probably the citizens. I mean, do we know what we have to have versus what we forecast that we may need for continued growth? So hypothetically, like, you're not saying I'm not proposing that, but if we just didn't stop growing or stopped improving everything tomorrow, where would we be at versus where we are now? And
yeah, the short, I mean, everything's a projection, right? But the way the model is set up, and Josh, correct me if I'm wrong, but we have currently entitled projects that we know, or we have asked the developers to provide a build-out schedule for. That's the commitments that are already committed, I guess, which for all our allocations have been provided. So we know what that number is. Then beyond that, it becomes what we believe to be our normal growth outside of that period. We do not, that's a little more based just on historical data than known projects, obviously, at that point. So there's some estimate in those numbers. But short answer is yes, we know with what we have currently entitled, how much flow is needed between now and, we'll say, 10-year through 2040, and what projections, some of the uncertainties we have, particularly with some of our larger industrial customers, if they have expansions planned, typically those are not, they're not publicized and or known till later in the game. So there's some assumptions in there that we've been working on with them also to be able to better understand their business plans moving forward. But in the immediate, we do know what, with the entitlements for the approved projects that we've got, how much flow is necessary.
okay, and then I have just one last question, I think. But regarding, obviously we've got a lot of infrastructure, got a lot of stuff that's come due because of the wastewater treatment upgrades we've made and the new plant. I mean, at what point do we kind of level out? Because obviously there's significant investment initially as more people come online, more people start to use it. Simplistically, we start to spread that cost out amongst many people versus few people. Does that make sense? Do we have an idea on that? Am I making sense?
I don't know that I'm prepared today, this afternoon, to give you a point where we level out. I mean, there's been several deferred projects. I mean, as you can see, that there's been some relatively lower than average rates. And so I think there's a catch-up period, and being able to complete some projects. Obviously, the Sam's project, that's success in getting that underway, getting on a path for wastewater, the Raleigh agreement. There's still additional phases to that project to come. So there is somewhat of a catch-up period that we're trying to catch this infrastructure up to the growth rate to be able to sit here today and tell you exactly kind of timeline for that catch-up or when things really start to level out. I don't know that I'm in a position to, but it may be something we could try to look into deeper with the consultants and come back with you.
And I understand, obviously, that's a broad, big question, but I just think that's something that would be good to know, or think about, forecast, because, I mean, you're obviously forecasting and making multiple assumptions on other accounts, try to just figure that out at some point. Thank you. Thank you for your presentation, too.
Anyone else? Ms. Archer?
Thank you for all of that riveting information. On slide 9, you mentioned the other revenues. And what I wanted to do was try to connect that back. So you've got your water retail, your sewer retail, and then your other revenues. And you mentioned that's where your development kind of comes in and adds to that column. Could you go back to slide 6 then? And I just want to try to connect these two things, make sure my logic is correct. So here, similarly on the cash-in revenue sources, that system development fee there on the left, that second bullet item, that is where, in addition, when development comes in and they're paying those system development fees to connect to the existing utility.
Correct.
Okay, and that is also the same set of fees that we have on that staggered increase to max out to the state required, or maximum. Thank you. Okay, cool. I just wanted to connect those two things, make sure I was.
Yeah, those system development fees, they 2017, 2018 went from your impact or acreage fees to the new structure, and those are those fees to new development for additional connections to be able to build that capacity into our system, and those are restricted funds. They are revenue, but they are restricted on how we can use those.
Okay, and then of course the revenue under existing rates, those are the ratepayers. Those are our rates that are contributing to the cash in.
Yes.
Okay, cool. Now the next part I want to ask about is going to I didn't catch the slide numbers, but it's showing, I think it's like the next 5 years of rates, and it's those charts.
The combined?
Yeah, right there with the green and the red and the yellow and all that. Okay, great. And so let's see, was this water?
This was the combined.
Combined. Could you go back to water alone? Okay. And so for that revenue increase where it's showing from 2027 to 2031, I know you mentioned the county increasing cost, they're passing on costs to us at the rate of 8 to 11%. Is that what is reflected in those increases each year? Or is that part of saving up for future expansion? I was just curious because, what's holding that 18 to 20-ish%?
It's both.
Okay.
And so the system development fees that we currently charge to new development do not cover all the capacity projects alone. And certainly we're not at the max. And so we're not, this calculation does not necessarily set you up for charging exactly what you have to. So on top of the increases from the county, we also have to be able to build into the rate structure for adding that additional capacity in there as well, just based on where we're at and not being able to fully charge to the development.
Okay, great. And then one last question on the same slide for the wastewater system. And when we were looking at that, 7 to 5 to 4%, you said that did not include planning for the second hypothetical phase of Sam's Branch.
It's not included in the horizon. So because of the extension with Raleigh, we are able to push that out of this is just a 5-year planning horizon. If you looked at the 10-year planning horizon, you would see that in there. and we've got some of that preliminary information. You do see some increases, but it's not substantial as we're looking at that 10-year planning horizon. Most standard here is look at the 5-year planning horizon, and with us being able to push it out, you don't see it in these numbers. It's not that we're not planning for it or preparing for it, it's just not in this planning horizon.
Yeah, I was just curious if that was in those rates. So that was all. Thank you.
All right. Anyone else? All right. Awesome. I'm sorry.
Well, I was just going to say, so I think what Josh was trying to convey here, obviously, as we go through this every year, there's still a few variables that we need to lock down here, but I think we intend, by the time we can come with a recommended balanced budget for the water and sewer enterprise fund, that we're going to do everything we can to try to get that combined bill rate down below into the single-digit increase, which we haven't, frankly, been able to do in quite some time, just basically all the rate compression we had over the years. But there's some more conversations we've got to have with the county for that overall long-term water supply and be able to vet that out, because that is the biggest influence you're going to have on your rates moving forward, whether it's us directly being a partner in that or just the cost of what the bulk charges that they're charging for the water itself. So more to come on that, but a lot of good work's been done by the team here trying to figure out, vet all the different scenarios we can get to try to make the impact as least as possible on the residents.
All right. Thank you, Rich. Thank you, Josh.
Thank you.
All right, up next is going to be the electric rate presentation.
All right, as Craig and Ryan make their way to the mic here, we'll go ahead and set this up. Very similar to what Joshua just presented. Craig and Ryan with 1898 & Co. They'll introduce themselves here in a second, but they've been our rate consultants for the last several years, reviewing everything on the electric enterprise side of this. So we'll let Craig kind of work through all of this and let you know where we stand as of right now.
Thanks, Rich. Yeah, it's good to see most of you again. Again, my name is Craig Brown. I'm a director at 1898 & Co. And our utility finance and rates group. So we focus on utility planning, finances, rates on the electric, water, sewer, stormwater utilities. If you're not familiar, 1898 & Co. is the consulting side of Burns McDonnell Engineering Company. So beyond rate making, we have a broad consulting organization that focuses on, business strategy and technology like GIS implementations and software implementations, transmission and distribution planning, resource planning, things like that. So it's good to be back. I've been working with the town of Clayton, I think, since 2017, dating back to my prior employer. And I actually brought the talent with me this year as well. So Ryan's going to do most of the talking today. So you won't have to listen to me this year. So just wanted to give a little bit of a refresher on what we do when we say we do a rate study. So just kind of a background on how we come up with the answers we do, what the process looks like. The rate study process is really a 3-step process. First, we target financial planning, revenue requirements. How much total revenue does the utility need to bring in to pay its expenses? So we'll start by forecasting revenue under existing rates. We'll look at the current year budgets, forecast operating expenditures, and a key part of it is looking at that capital plan and figuring out how you're going to finance that. Luckily, the electric is apparently a lot lower than the water and sewer capital plan. So I kind of like following up on those this time.
Yeah, I like hearing it better too.
So, but that kind of gives us that process. We usually will build out a 5 to 10 year financial forecast, and that's going to answer the question, what's the overall rate increase that needs to be for the town. The second phase of a rate study is not something we do every year. It's the cost of service phase. And that's where you figure out how equitable your cost recovery is among your rate classes. So comparing commercial, industrial, residential, and seeing how well those collect revenue relative to what we cost. So we allocate those costs out to the classes through a process of functionalization, classification, allocation. And what that is, it kind of takes 1 year to see how equitable your rates are structured. And we typically do that about every 5 years. And I think we did it 2 or 3 years ago, I think was the most recent one. So we'll probably do that again in a couple of years. But what that tells us is of those, that overall rate increase, should that be spread to the classes differently? So if you have a 5% rate increase, and some classes are really under recovering their cost, well, maybe they get like a 7% and some other one else gets a 3%, just to bring those classes more into equitable situations. So with that, you kind of develop a target revenue then for each class. And that's where we get to the third phase, which is rate design, which is how do we actually price these services? And we can, sometimes it's just you spread the percentage to everyone, all the components the same. The other thing that comes out of cost of service is an understanding of the unit cost and how much customer cost should be and how much demand charges should be, because that's really what we allocate is based on energy demand and customer. So it gives us information to set those prices, and then we look at other things that meet certain things, goals of the utility, to price those services out. So what we're talking about today is the first step and the third step, and just bypassing the cost of service and looking back to your most recent one or the most recent two. Your classes actually are pretty equitable already, so we haven't had to make those interclass adjustments. So with that, I'm going to pass it off to Ryan, and he's going to walk you through this year's study.
Afternoon, everyone. Ryan Collins. I've been working with Craig in the town for the last 3 years now. Happy to be here today. Not as talented as he might have led on, but I appreciate the encouragement. So starting out, customer growth and energy sales forecasts here. So you'll see on these graphs that the town has consistently seen customer growth over the past few years, and we expect that to kind of continue through our forecast period of 2031. A lot of that growth's been driven at the residential level. We've conservatively forecasted the range from 3 to 5% over the study period. And then the jump in that CP class beginning, it should say in 2027 now, is due to the new wastewater treatment plant coming online. So a little bit about that wastewater treatment plant, estimated to come online August 2026 at the earliest. There's going to be a peak shaving generator at the plant, approximately 2 megawatts of load with 3.5 megawatts of generation on the system. And then the expectation is to have the ability to run that peak shaving generator during coincident peak events each month, reducing the town's load and minimizing the system's CP contribution. So we're expecting to see around 1.2 megawatts of export each month from this peak shaving generator, reducing the power supply needs and then creating savings for the system. As of right now, we don't have that included in our current forecast. We want to be conservative in what we forecast. But starting next year, we should have some actual data to flow in and see the impacts. So the capital improvement plan, this table here shows the CIP over the next 5 years, including fiscal year 2026 in here. And then at the bottom of this table, you have the CIP financing. So in 2027, you'll see that top line, the capital UG new res development jumps from 1.6 million in 26 to that 4 million in 27, and then back to that 1.6 number. That's due to a copper district project that's slated for fiscal year 27. And then that 1.6 million is just what we forecast for new residential underground development each year. In those outer years, starting in 2029, you'll see those Main Street conversion projects. These were pushed out a couple of years in our big capital projects. So you'll see approximately a $4 to $5 million increase in the CIP in those outer years. As far as financing goes, so 26 and some of 27 will be funded with prior revenue bonds. And we're also forecasting future bond issuance starting in 27 and throughout the forecast period to help keep rate increases down and reduce the needs for additional rate revenues. So revenue requirements here under existing rates. So you'll see this stacked chart is your revenue requirement, and that line going through the chart is your revenue under existing rates. So there's been larger than expected increases in power supply costs the last few years. Expect that to continue from Enkempa true-ups and rising costs. So we've updated the study recently with a preliminary fiscal year 2027 budget. And then we've also increased the debt financing on the CIP, like I just touched on, to help maintain those key financial metrics and keep some of that pressure off of rates. So those key metrics under existing rates, you'll see your operating cash balance here, your debt service coverage, and then your operating ratio. So in 2026, 131 days cash on hand, 120-day target. Debt service coverage looking healthy at 3.29, 1.5 target there. And then operating ratio of 1.16 with a 1.25 target. The top two on here are the ones we look at mainly. The operating ratio has been put into the fiscal policy as a target at 1.25, but we're, I would say, more concerned with maintaining cash on hand and debt service coverage. You'll see under existing rates over the forecast period, those numbers decrease. That's due to rising costs, rising capital needs, forecasted increases in operation and maintenance costs. And then under existing rates, you're obviously not forecasting any additional revenue. And that leads us to fiscal year 2027, the proposed increase, and then a 5-year forecast. So you'll see on here on that top line, your revenue under existing rates, and then as of now in the forecast, our proposed rate adjustment. So for 2027, we're looking at 2.5% on base rates, and that's about $540,000 in additional rate revenue for the town. 28 and 29 staying at that 2.5%. And then the outer years as of now, we're at 4%. And that's due to those larger capital needs like the two Main Street projects. And as you'll see at the bottom of this table, you have your days cash on hand, your debt service, and then your operating ratio once again. These increases keep your days cash on hand just slightly above that 120-day target, right around 130. And then you'll see in those outer years when you take on additional debt financing for those larger CIP projects, your debt service coverage ratio drops below 2 in 2030, but remains well above your target. And then your operating ratio remained under that 1.25 policy target just due to that bond financing. So rate adjustment summary here. You see the recommended rate adjustment of 2.5 in the current study. When we did this last year, we had 3%. And then in 28 and 29, we also had 3% in the 2025 study. So come down 0.5% for the next 3 fiscal years, and then a little bit up in 30 and 31 with moving those CIP projects out. Key takeaway here is the town's done a good job managing the electric operation. Obviously, seeing that you're only at 2.5% as opposed to 3% is a win from last year with rising costs. And obviously, a huge piece of the bill is that Enkempa power supply. So we're only requesting the council approval for fiscal year 27, the 2.5%. Again, this forecast is driven by those Enkempa increases and then meeting the target metrics, 120 days of cash and that 1.5 debt service. The proposed debt financing, it keeps these rate increases lower, but doesn't threaten that 1.5 target. So there's a fine line there where you don't want to issue too much debt and really knock down your debt service coverage. This is a nice mix between keeping those rate increases small, but keeping the town solvent. And then if we wanted to meet that 1.25 operating ratio target, there would be additional rate increases, but that's not the main objective. Again, days cash on hand and debt service coverage are the main two we look at. So stepping into rate design, just going to go over a few high-level concepts here. So you have your fixed costs and variable costs. On the fixed cost side, you have your investment in generation, investment in operations and transmission, distribution, and then a lot of that customer service and billing, admin and overheads. Variable costs, your fuel handling, a piece of your power supply, your purchase power, volumetric transmission charges, some energy-related O&M if you own generation, and then there can be some environmental costs as well. So cost causation principles, customer demand and energy here. So your customer costs that vary based on the number of customers on your system, billing, meter reading, on-site distribution facilities, and then some distribution field equipment. Demand costs are your costs caused by peak loads on the system. So you build your system to meet that peak coincident requirement. So that's your non-variable generation, transmission costs, and then your non-customer piece of distribution costs. And then your energy costs are costs that vary with the number of kilowatt hours consumed. So that's your fuel, your variable generation, your variable piece of your power supply bill, and then some variable transmission charges. And that leads us kind of into some issues that we see with typical rate design, and this is across the entire industry for as long as I've been around, and I think as long as even Craig's been around. So a lot of your utility system costs are fixed. So you'll see on this table on the left, your power supply energy is variable, but then your capacity, your transmission, building out your distribution system, and then those admin costs are all fixed costs. Traditionally, and you'll see this in the right table, your typical utility rates, highlighted in red there, is you're going to recover most of these through variable charges. Your customer costs, you obviously have a fixed customer charge, but typically that's going to be lower than what we would see on a cost of service study where it may say you should charge $40 per customer, but really you're just moving your customer charge up $1 or so. So when we go through rate design, we try to move closer to or more into fixed cost recovery where we can without overdoing it. So try and take your fixed costs and put them in that fixed cost recovery bucket because that gives revenue certainty and then is less volatile. So the rate design objectives for the fiscal year 27 rate study. So it equal 2.5% across all the classes. A simplification of the SGS and institutional rate structure. And then we'll talk a little bit about commercial EV charging rates as that was part of our study. So this is a detailed slide. You have 4 different rate classes on here. You have your residential, your small general, medium general service, and then your coincident peak class. On the residential side, you'll see your present rates, $21 single phase customer charge, $3 more on a 3-phase customer, which the town currently doesn't have anybody under that rate. And then on your recommended rates, you'll see we're bumping that customer charge from $21 to $22. And then keeping that same $3 relationship between single and 3-phase. And then the remaining piece of that 2.5% increase is captured in the energy charge. So you'll see a slight increase from the 13.76 cents to a little bit over 14 cents there. On the commercial classes, we've increased the customer charges. So small general service there, $33 to $40. And then this is where we made a simplification, I would say, in the rate design. So previously, there were 3 different blocks for the SGS class, 0 to 750 kilowatt hours in usage. your next 2,000, so up to 2,750, and then all additional. So it's a declining block rate structure where you would, well, I guess I should say we had 2 blocks. We have 3 on there, but you'll see 15.36 cents were in there for the first 2,750. But a declining block rate structure, so if you were to use over that large amount, then you would see a decrease in your per hour cost. At a request of the town and what we've worked through for this study, we've removed that declining block rate structure. We're just simplifying this to go to 1 kilowatt hour charge. So you'll see there it brings down those first 2 blocks, which a lot of the town's SGS customers fall on those first 2 blocks. And then it increases that last usage level to get in line with those top 2. Medium general service, bump the customer charge there, $45 to $50. A small increase in the demand charge on that one, so from $13 to $13.50, and then a very small increase in the energy charge for whatever the remaining 2.5% was. CP class, similar philosophy there, so small bump in your customer charge. Same thing for your coincident peak demand charge. And then on the energy charge, that one's just slightly higher. So taking a step into a little bit more detail on the residential side here. So this is your typical customer bills under existing and recommended rates specifically for your residential class. You'll see there our usage blocks are 500 kWh per month, 900, which is about the town average per month, and then 1,000, 1,500, and 2,000. You'll see your existing and your recommended bills there. Your low user at 500 kilowatt hours, percent change is 2.7, slightly higher because we're capturing that $1 extra in the customer charge. At your 900 kilowatt hour average usage, 2.5% increase. And then as you step up into high usage levels, you would see a slightly smaller increase at that 2,000 kWh per month, just because, again, we put $1 into that customer charge. So this increase would increase the typical electric customer's bill by about 12 cents per day, based on a 30-day month. And then taking a look at the other rate classes. So what we have on here is general service time of use, city usage, and then area lights and institutional service. So general time of use is very similar to the CP rate. So you'll see the same customer charge there, an on-peak demand charge, and then an energy charge. On this one, the energy charge stayed flat. City usage, we did not increase the customer charge there. We put that 2.5% into the general fund energy usage, so kept it all variable. Area lights, each light just got a 2.5% increase across the board and rounded to 2 decimal points. And then the institutional service is similar to the small general service where we bumped the customer charge, but then removed that previous or declining block rate structure to simplify that rate as well. So commercial EV charging rates, as part of our study, we did a dive into specifically level 3 charger rates. So level 2 is going to be your at-home or local commercial use. You charge 5 to 15 kW, and that's typically going to be a 5 to 12 hour charge. Level 3 is your DC fast chargers, where you see development in commercial areas that are putting in 3-phase 480 volt power. These charge obviously at a significant clip, so 50 to 350 kW, and they only take 30 to 60 minutes. These rates we designed and explored are based on those level 3 chargers. So this table here is an example of that level 3 charger. So CP demand charges are highly impacted by these. They're very spiky. They don't get used a lot. So when we say low load factor there at 10%, they basically sit there all day, and then somebody pulls up and connects, So they have a lot of fixed costs sitting there that aren't getting recovered through variable charges. We're reflecting a high coincidence to send price signals here. So we're saying for our rate design, we want to make sure we're targeting that CP hour and keeping cars off these chargers during that CP hour when they spike. And then it's also imperative that those level 3 rates be designed to avoid or recover those CP demand costs. And then effective rate recovery here, it's going to require those CP demand charges, a time of use structure, or both. I do want to, so this will sound like I'm kind of rehashing some things I just talked about, but we developed them for level 3. I do want to point out that any additional system upgrades up front would be paid for by the developer. And that we looked at 3 separate options. So we looked at an energy-only EV charger rate that has a customer charge, your energy charge, and then you're adding in the distribution recovery charge to that energy charge. We looked at one for EV chargers with the demand rate. So same idea there, except you added the on-peak demand charge and a distribution demand charge. And then we looked at the current CP rate. So that's your customer charge, your energy charge, your on-peak charge, and then your excess demand charge. So if we're looking at energy only here, so our customer charge is the same as the MGS class at $50. And then we're recovering all costs in that energy charge. So you'll see it's really high there, 41.5% or 41.5 cents per kilowatt hour. And there's no demand charges under this structure. And again, our assumptions here, 10% load factor and an 80% coincidence with Clayton peak. So if we look at it with a demand charge, we kept the same customer charge there, $50. You'll see that energy charge comes way down to 14.4 cents because you're now recovering your CP demand costs and a demand charge. So that recovers some of your CP demand power supply costs and then some of those distribution costs at $19.50 per kW. It comes out to the same average rate and the same assumptions there. So takeaways here, level 3 EV chargers, they can highly impact Clayton's CP demand if used during those peak periods, your hot summer afternoons or your winter mornings. So the goal is to keep customers from using them during those times, whether it's incentivized through the rate structure or through like an incentive of some sort. So we initially looked at time-based rates to appropriately cover costs, but as of right now, the current billing system is not compatible with what we were looking at. And it's important that the town structures these customers correctly so that they are sending the correct price signal and recovering those in-campus CP costs if necessary. And this can be done through the specific EV charger demand rates we looked at or through the current CP rate structure as it essentially sends the same signal as a CP demand EV specific rate would send. So as of now, we think that mandating that these customers are placed on the current CP rate is a streamlined solution for the town as we kind of further explore those EV specific rates. And that was my last slide. And as you'll see up there, I have Craig's name for questions. But happy to field some.
I got a quick question back. I'm going to be like my colleague here. Back to slide 17. Are you so impressed? And this will be just a real quick question because I want us to keep on schedule. Oh, was that it? So I think it could be helpful for me and for the public who's watching. It has a mind of its own. Can we just give a general quick overview of the classes? Obviously, residential is clear. Small general service, medium general service, and coincident peak. Can you give us an overview of what that constitutes?
So small general service is, I think, in your case, 20 megawatts and below, 25 megawatts and below, or sorry, kilowatts. So think of like gas stations, small convenience stores, your smaller commercial type entities. Generally, they kind of have a similar load profile to residential because they're usually open during the day. They have a pretty low load factor, kind of like residential. As you get into medium general service, that's more your bigger commercial, grocery stores, Lowe's, Home Depot, things like that. And even those can get up there. That's most of your, not quite industrial, but larger commercial. And then what's your large general service is your CP class. And really, we strongly encourage any customers to get on that CP rate because it mimics your power supply, and it's really the most causation-based rate design. And you only have 3 of those right now, and I don't know them off the top of my head, but that's really more your industrial type loads. And then the new sewer treatment plant will be the 4th.
Okay, thank you, that was perfect.
Thanks, Craig, while you're there, Ryan, would you just maybe explain a little bit too about how that coincident peak, how that affects our bill at the end of the month?
Yeah, so your power supply comes from NECEMPA, which is a joint action agency or a power agency for many municipals across the state. In fact, there's 2. There's NECEMPA for the eastern side. There's power agency number 1 on the western side of the state. Your power supply is tied to Duke Energy's wholesale customer. So you are effectively, or Electricities is effectively a wholesale customer of Duke Energy. So you pay the same power supply rates as their wholesale customers do. When we talk about coincident peak, we talk about different ways of peak. Typically, when a customer has a demand charge, you're billed whatever the maximum time they peak during the month is, or the maximum usage, not really much kilowatt hours, but just the pure load you pull in the system. For coincident peak, that is the 1 hour in the month where your load is at the time the Duke system peaks. So you can have coincidence with your own peak system, or in your case, a majority of your costs are driven when the Duke system peaks. So that 1 hour is why it's so important to control that, because that demand charge is like $23 a kilowatt. That's kind of the fixed piece we talked about. And the energy cost to you is about 2.5 cents per kilowatt hour. So it's a very small piece. So that's why we kind of emphasize that fixed versus variable cost recovery, because very little of yours is variable. It's really just that 2.5 cent piece. So much of what we focus is about getting rate recovery and sending the economic signal around that coincident peak.
And that's the shaving piece of.
And that's why the treatment plant with a 3.5 megawatt generator for only a 2 megawatt load, not only are you avoiding that coincident peak, but you're actually exporting back into the system to benefit the whole system. So that should be lowering the average energy cost for the entire system going forward.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Mr. Casey.
I have questions about the EV charging, the level 3. So obviously it's called commercial. And I saw where you kind of said the different, types and whether you use that. Or you may not know this question, but I assume do we have any level 3 charging stations in this area right now?
You just got one. Huh? So you just got is it Tesla? I think it's one charging station with 2 180 megawatt chargers. So you've got 360 kilowatts that can be going at once.
Okay, that's over there by the Smithville Barbecue, I assume.
I'll refer to Matt on that one.
Okay, but I guess in theory, typically where are these, I know at 4042, they took a gas station and converted it to a charging station, whatever. Is this example, what are examples where you're going to see a level 3?
I think like the ones you see at like grocery stores, hotels, those are usually the level 2 ones that only charge up to about 15 kilowatts at a time. Those are less of a concern for you. The thing with level 3 is like you could have 360 kilowatts at once if they're both plugged in. And not only that, they spike to 180, but they don't stay there like a level 2. They'll actually spike to 180 and gradually come down, just the way batteries charge. So that drives an even lower load factor, besides what Ryan pointed out, which is they don't get used a whole lot with how much EV usage you have in the system. So that's why we kind of push that it's a strong consideration, which is why you break it into an energy charge. You can see that's why it's a 41 cent per kilowatt hour energy charge to recover all of those demand costs if it's energy only.
Yeah, the big concern there would be if both of those are running at the same hour that Duke is getting their coincident peak. Next thing you know, the bill for the entire system just shot through the roof because a good portion of our overall monthly bill is driven by literally that 1 hour. So time of use being another consideration just in general for everybody in terms of being able to better control their bottom line or their bill every month. But we got our first one. Matt, I don't know if you know exactly where that one is, if you want to give them any other information on that. But we've got one, but it doesn't mean that there's not more coming or going to be requested. So having the structure in place is going to be beneficial to us.
Yes, good afternoon. We have just taken on our first commercial EV charging customer. It's over at the spinning mill area off of Peterman, I believe it is. And they just got their first month's bill, or it's actually still in process right now. So this is, we're kind of just getting this off the ground right at the right time.
Okay, that's fine. I mean, obviously this seems to be small potatoes compared to everything else we're talking about, but I just want to make sure the messaging, if we do go through with this, I don't, the residents to think, we're not, environmentally friendly or we're against charging stations and stuff like that. There's obviously a specific reason why we won't, we want to be cautious of these level 3 chargers comparatively to the, I guess, level 1 or level 2. So that's all.
Well, Matt's definitely better suited to answer that question, but I don't think that it's that we're not trying to be friendly with electric vehicles or otherwise. It's just we have to be cognizant of the impacts they could have on the overall system. Again, when you get these big commercial ones that can spike that during that 1 hour, that's going to impact the entire system. So every ratepayer in the system is affected. If we start having a lot of chargers on the same transformers within some of our subdivisions, that's going to start becoming an impact for us because many of those transformers are not sized to be able to handle 2, 3, 4 homes on one transformer. So there's additional costs there to the overall system that we just need to be able to have that factored into whatever structure we ultimately go with. So that long term, it's just, the operations of a few don't end up impacting the overall significantly.
These guys and Rich have nailed it basically when it comes to this EV charging rate, the main intent, because if you look at their load details, they look a lot like a medium general service customer, but they have that high probability of coincidence to the coincident peak. And if they peaked during that same hour, we need to have a rate in place that we can recover those costs. And that's what this is. That's what the driver for this is.
Yeah, understood. And I appreciate that. I think just obviously the messaging to the community, if we do this, is, they're not going to be really impacted. It's going to be these other entities that are not outside of my neighbor next door that has a charging station in there and hooked up in their garage or so.
Yeah, this is strictly for your larger commercial ones.
Perfect. Thank you.
And just to add on to that, we mentioned that we had evaluated time of use. In fact, earlier we had actually developed a residential time of use just as an optional for your customers, but got towards the end and realized you don't actually have the billing capacity to do that right now, which is why we almost lean towards the recommendation of it would be easier for you at this point if just require them to be on the CP rate. And that's going to effectively recover cost. It can benefit them if they have the ability to control when that peak hour is, then it'll be a much lower rate for them. So,
and I think that creates a partnership and a responsibility on both sides.
And then you're not really doing like an end user rate to actually have a commercial EV charging rate. Just if that has negative public perception or any unintended consequences, which is usually can lend it to so.
All right, anybody else? It's great work. Thank you both very much. You would. I know. So I think they want to keep on. Are y'all good with keeping on? Yeah. The rowdy crowd to the left. All right, up next then, under items for discussion will be the bill printing and electronic bills update. You can have anything in there that you want.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. Ann Game, Utility Billing, and Carrie Greening with Utility Billing. We just wanted to give you an update on the bill print versus electronic billing. This kind of came out of a discussion in our budget meeting, so we thought we would bring this to you with some suggestions. Why are we here? We want to kind of give you an overview of the bill print cost versus electronic billing. There is a cost with electronic billing, but we want to show you the differences. We want to propose 3 strategies on how we can decrease costs for our department. We want to provide options for customers to receive communication in the manner most convenient to them. And we want to promote an environment-friendly solution for all of our customers.
Okay, so currently the cost of printing and postage versus electronic bills. So if we're going to print a bill and mail it, the bill itself costs 15 cents. The monthly newsletter, which is 2 pieces of paper, double-sided, is 18 cents. And then the cost of postage is 59, 92 cents for a bill. The e-bill, which is the exact same thing, only costs 12 cents. You get the bill, you get the newsletter, and it looks exactly the same.
So just as a reminder, this is the bill that you all approved. This is what I get email, and there's a couple of council women here today that do get electronic billing. I double-checked your account. So you are getting exactly the same mailing than if our customers who get theirs in an envelope.
So you're saving us 80 cents every month.
Yeah. Okay, so this was March. So this was the month of March. And we just wanted to show you what it cost us in the month of March and how many printed bills we had versus electronic billing. So again, just showing you the cost difference in the two. And we obviously are working really hard to do changes to this. I have a couple of recommendations for you. So strategy 1 is just starting May 1st. What we propose is that every new customer that comes in our doors and sets up service, they have to opt out of electronic billing. We want everybody to receive an electronic bill. Obviously, there are going to be cases of people who do not have emails, believe it or not. We would mail them a bill. But what we would propose is there's a nominal fee to mail people the bills. Right now, we're seeing about 300 new customers a month on average. So just if that had been the month of March, we would have saved $240 in bill print and mailing cost. And again, remember, it's the exact same bill that you get in the mail. Same inserts, same information. Strategy 2 is what we're already doing. I know we put on here, we're going to start this May 1st, but with every customer we're talking to, if they're calling our office or coming in, we're asking them if they would like the option of electronic billing. They get it quicker, faster, you're not waiting for the mail. Again, we're already doing this piece. I know I hear Carrie on the phone with people that are calling with questions. We both signed up over 5 people last week. Just in a short week, we got people signed up for it. We would work with the communications team to come up with a strategy and a plan. Again, I've got staff promoting this right now, having people getting electronic bills. And the third strategy that I would definitely like to propose to the council is that by January 1, we are implementing a full-blown strategy that anyone that's on paper billing, and again, that's costing us money every month to mail it, that we are recouping our cost for mailing someone a bill. We can add it as a billing item on the bill. It would be a charge, again, just to recoup our cost for this bill. So again, 3 strategies. 1, just being new customers coming in the door. They are automatically signed up for electronic billing. Number 2, that we're doing this now. Anyone who is a town customer, we are urging them to sign up for electronic billing. We're talking about the advantages of it, not only from an environmental, we're saving trees by not printing the paper. We also have people that never even open their bills. Carrie's got a stack. This was just bills returned today from the post office. And we go through these. We call every customer. This is, again, another target for us. If your bill is returned to us, we have a couple of areas of town that are mail kiosk. Seems those are the hardest for people to get their mail at. Don't know if you all hear it. We hear it a lot. We call them. We try to get them signed up for electronic billing, or we email them a bill, whatever we have to do to get them a copy. Most of these are not going to be people that have moved. These are just simply where the post office has returned them to us. And then our third strategy, we really would like to propose that at some point in time, January 1st preferably, that we are recouping those costs for this mailing customers' bills. Questions?
So there is currently a campaign to get people on e-billing, but what is the process for that? Because I have wanted to get an e-bill for several years and have no idea how to do it even after looking. So
just call our office. That's all you have to do is call our office and we get you signed up. What we would like to do, and again, first step, and again, Amanda, you are an existing customer.
Yeah.
So first step would be brand new walking in the door. You've come in the door to set up service. We'd like to get those people first. We'd also like to, just like this, work with our communications team to get a campaign out to existing customers to say, this is how you sign up for electronic billing and why. I mean, we want to make sure it's not just to save money, but it's also you get your bill faster.
Right.
You get your bill.
Well, I think I probably got bank draft before before this was even an option. But for people who get their bill delivered in the mail now, I do think letting them know how to get electronic bills would be very helpful.
Absolutely.
And I understand wanting to recover the cost, but we're not charging for mail now. And my concern would be that the people who want it mailed are probably older and maybe on fixed incomes. And so I'm not entirely sure that, certainly encouraging people to switch to electronic billing would be smart. And again, I will be calling you myself to get this done. But yeah, I'm concerned. I don't know how much of a fee it would be, and it's probably not going to be that much, but that the people who would want to receive it in the mail, that this would be a burden on them. And obviously we want them to pay their bills and know how much they owe. So
sure.
We don't want that to be a barrier.
So if all this gets implemented, how much money are we going to save annually? What's the big number? Right? I get we're $240 a month or something.
But that's just for those 300 from March.
Okay.
But you remember that compounds every month. So that 300 in April turns into 600, turns into 900, turns in every month that compounds. So that 240 is going to continuously increase.
Postage is very expensive.
And it's only going to go up.
Yeah, it's
correct?
getting more expensive.
Yeah, and unfortunately, postal costs, Jody, you know this, postal costs are going up pretty much quarterly now.
That's really what's eating us alive.
It is. It's the postage.
Well, everyone for that matter.
Well, and to Jody's point, I think that we'll never get to 100% because we've got a percentage of the population that's going to want their bill and they're not online, they're not on computers. And I think that's reasonable to figure, but I applaud you for your efforts to get people as they're coming in, as you're having conversations. That's a great way to start, even not having a campaign, because this could be a huge recovery opportunity for us. And not recovery, but a huge opportunity to cost save.
We have the application ready so that when brand new, if you all say yes to our strategy one, that if someone comes in to sign up for new service or they do it online, they are signed up for electronic billing. They will have an opt-out section.
And if you've got a surcharge for a mail billing, I'm assuming that would be no more than to cover our costs.
Absolutely.
And then if there's a hardship, just like there is now with issues, there's a conversation to be had.
Yes.
And I think that's reasonable, just like there are credit card fees for processing. I don't think it's really different. It's processing for manual mail at this point.
Ms. Casey.
I can agree with Amanda and also what everybody else has been saying too. I really would like to see strategy 1 and 2 started out first and see how that trends. I'd also be curious on strategy 1, requiring them to opt out. For those that do sign up for e-billing, how many are maybe late payers or, I get 1,000 emails and they're hard to decipher and through. We're on electronic billing, so obviously that's a savings grace for us. But I would just be curious about the other 2 first and then see how that kind of comes into play. And if you're looking to roll this strategies 3 out January of next year, we obviously have some time to see how the others
Absolutely.
how effective the others are first. But 2, again, like I said, the campaign and then also again, for the ones that have to opt out, for the ones that are on e-billing, what's the percentage of them being late versus the people that maybe get a paper statement, if that's easy to measure. Other question real quick too is, and I was looking for the sample statements that you gave us earlier, but does it clearly stay on there how to do e-billing?
How to do e-billing?
How to sign up for e-billing on there?
No, does not. No,
Okay.
does not. We want to do a separate campaign for just that.
I was also going to suggest in the meantime, just as a stopgap, so when I went to look, I looked on the tracker and a few different places, and if it had said call the utility department if you want e-billing, I would have done it. So if we could add that somewhere.
Absolutely.
I think that would be great.
Or shoot an email or whatever.
Yeah, one of the things that we've really battled with is that old bill design was not this. And this is so much more appealing to get by email than your old bill was. And so this is really something brand new to us. And to have 3,200 customers already signed up for it, we're pretty happy with that, but it's not where we want to be. I'd like to easily be at over half of our customer base receiving their bill electronically.
What do you think the percentage is now?
I'm sorry.
60/40, the percentage now? Okay.
Yeah.
So, we're mailing out 13.5 bills.
Yeah, so what I was going to mention on this slide, thank you for going to it, because it's very similar to the conversation we had several years ago about credit card fees and whether that should be absorbed within the utility or the users that choose to use a credit card. That's very much the same approach that we've taken here in terms of evaluating this process. If you look at these numbers here, we're basically, I'm a round number guy, we're basically spending about $10,000 a month on printing, so $120,000 a year. That is what we are budgeting every year to make sure that we can just to send the bills out to collect. If that's the case, and if we could get those numbers inverted,
Yeah.
and we had 3,200 actual mailed bills, and the majority of those were emails, then that number actually comes down significantly, and that helps out the entirety of the utility because everybody's not having to account for that full cost every year. But the people that choose to still maintain that paper bill can still have that option. They just have to pay for it, which at this current price, I believe on the previous slide, but what we had talked about when Ann and Carrie brought this to us at executive team was $1 a month that offsets your cost if you choose to have a paper bill.
And I will tell you, we cannot find another utility saying this. Now, they may be doing this behind the scenes, but they're not saying this. There are definitely retail stores that you pay for a paper bill now. If you get Belk's, Talbot's, if you pay for a bill, if you want paper, you're paying $3.29
Well,
for their bill.
because this is, we sort of have a monopoly here. Do we have any obligation to provide a paper bill?
I mean, I don't know. I don't know that we have an obligation to provide a paper bill. I think we, I don't know.
Batteries did, so.
Oh.
We're all turning blue. Oh, there it is. I don't know what that was about, but I think we have an obligation to a certain population to be able to furnish a paper bill. And I think to cover the costs at $1 is reasonable, because that's all we're doing is covering costs. So I think we're never going to get to 100% just by the nature of the population and some of the challenges. So, but I think this is great. And I think with that kind of number, if you're talking about a 6-figure savings,
yes,
I think it's something we have to look at aggressively pursuing myself. I think it's only reasonable.
That is not low hanging fruit.
No, it's not. Not given what some of the constraints we're already faced with. And to your point, to add to a utility cost, we need to be able to transfer any savings we can make to our citizens.
And I have a question. So back to the email billing, I personally now get text messaging saying my bill's due for my cell phone, Dish Network, and everything else. Is that something, for some of the older people, they may not be able to text to, or they may not, have text messaging features as well. But is that something we have capabilities of that with this
We
program?
do not with the current ERP system, with the current software. Not bill printing software, but with our ERP system that we're obviously investigating a new one, and the RFP is going out. That is something that we have asked for. That's one of our wish list items for the new software.
Okay.
And I would assume there probably can't get any there yet. I would assume there would be a charge for that probably if we incorporated that as well. Okay.
Yeah, I think, from a scale perspective, if we're at $120-something thousand, I mean, this year, you heard from the 1898 and Co. folks, the 2.5% increase is going to bring us about $500,000 of additional revenue, I believe, this year. You're talking about potential savings of 0.5% on that, a little less than that increase if we could have reduced this cost down to 12 cents instead of the 90 cents that we're having to pay for the majority of the bills. So I think to Mr. Casey's point there, and Ms. Underwood and everybody, finding ways to make sure people can still are getting the information, getting access to it however they need to. They can still see it in the customer portal at any time. So that's another thing we can investigate, is if there's any other automations that could be set with reminders and everything else. But effectively, when you start seeing the potential opportunity here to reduce that cost significantly, that's really where this came out of. So, I guess our question, to kind of put a bow on this to a certain extent is, the step one with the new customers opting out, is there a consensus to be able to start doing that? I mean, we will obviously put a campaign together and make it clear on the website and customer service booklet manual. I'm sorry, I'm making it sound simple. Put the information in there to make sure customers know that is, the default is going to be an e-bill and that they have to request to opt out. Are we okay implementing that for the May 1st? I'm seeing a lot of head nods, yes. And then on strategy 2 to promote the e-bills, I mean, that's as simple as staff putting together, a campaign, both, social media and email, calls, however we got to do it, incorporate it into the different newsletters and things that we've got. We'll look at all the different tools in the toolbox, but ultimately see how much progress we can make in getting some folks flipped over. And then, is there an appetite right now to look at incorporating a fee that would go into effect January 1? Or do you want to hold on that decision till the fall?
I mean, we could definitely come back in, say, October, November with data to see how that swing has changed.
Yep.
Because it's obviously going to be a larger number. I mean, with 300 coming in between now and then, it should go up by 1,000 plus.
Right.
Number one, and let's see if we can work towards getting the existing customers.
I like that. The other thing I think we can roll out, if you come back to us and we've got the savings we anticipate, when part of our marketing campaign to roll this out is it's a partnership. Help us help you. I think that's a big, I'm going to copyright that, by the way, just so you know. But it's just, I think it's a great strategy in September, if this is what we adopt, to really onboard this and to get partnership with our folks in helping us make this effort to create this savings.
I just want to say that I am in agreement with strategy 1. My concern would be with the strategy 3 portion. I'm concerned about the senior citizens, those who do not have computers and ways of getting they're afraid of the computer, internet, email. There's a great percentage of those folks out there who do not. That's why they want a mail-in copy. So maybe by the time we see what happens after May 1st and those dates, maybe we come up with another idea of how to help those that just have to have that bill because it's the comfort zone.
Absolutely.
And so that would be my concern about that grouping. Not only the seniors, there may be other folks who do not have computers and cannot get an email, do not have an email to be able to get that. But I am for it, so don't get twisted. But the thing about it is I'm just concerned for those that do not have the ability to get emails and want that mailing.
Right.
So they just have to pay, I guess. Thank you.
So my question is there any way to utilize this as an incentive? Like for people who are going to want, let's just take senior, for example, going to want hard copy. And then after we go through these phases, then they're going to get charged for hard copy. But just like we have incentives for people who go a full year and pay their bill on time, right? Is this something where if they get a hard copy and they pay their bill on time, then we don't have to bill them for the mail-in fee? Or is there any way to I just want to know if we can explore a little bit about how to make this an incentive.
That's a great idea. Something, something.
Whatever that would look like.
Right, something.
Yeah.
I think that's a good idea for us to look into.
I mean, is it possible that we could try to move to having everyone on e-bill that is willing and then seeing how many people we have left over and seeing what kind of, how much volume there is and if we really need the fee?
Yeah, I'd like to see that $10,000 cut more than in half. I really would.
Oh, yes.
I'm
And
sure you all would.
I hate mail, so, I'm going to do this right away. And I think if we let people know that some of the existing customers will also do that, so.
And I think a lot of times what happens is people go ahead and go online and look at their bill before they get this piece of paper in the mail. They go ahead and pay it, and they're never even looking at this. I'm convinced that happens because of these returns. So, yeah.
Yes.
I just wanted to give the tree hugger moment. Great discussion, by the way, but just the landfill aspect, right? And recycling these things. I mean, that's honestly the savings and the convenience are great, but I have all my stuff on online because I had worked at DEQ and I saw every day all the landfill applications coming in. And so the more we can reduce this unnecessary waste, the better it is for the planet. I really think it can be a win for the town of Clayton to tout that we have an option that we're trying to explore to help with sustainability and all that sort of stuff too. So there's another angle we could explore. In fact, I just made a list of 3 local environmental groups that I feel like would promote it with their readers and throughout town and to try to promote people to sign up just for the environmental aspect.
Great. And we can even set up, Amanda, I was thinking about this. We've done this before. We've set up basically where someone can drop their email and their phone number and their account number and into us. It just comes to us automatically. Nathaniel's the genius behind this. And then we just update things in the system. So we can do that, could be part of our campaign. And we're just, getting people signed up quickly.
Sorry, it probably would be easier than answering the phone for everyone.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, I hope it's 5,000 people quickly.
I want everyone to sign up, but I also don't want them all to call at once
Right.
because that's not going to be good for you.
We'll work on that. We'll definitely work on that. Anything else? Thank you. Thank you.
Thank y'all. That was great. All right, and the last item on the agenda, current agenda, is the Town of Clayton utility rate web page launch.
Good afternoon, everybody. It's my pleasure to bring to you guys tonight a webpage we've created to help better educate our customers on our utility rates and the impacts of those and just a full understanding of their new redesigned utility bills. Okay, we put this page together. Sorry, this mouse, I apologize. And it begins with essentially a Town of Clayton utility rate overview. It talks about just the general information regarding rates. And then under that, we have understanding your utility bill, which is a brief video that goes over page by page, item by item, giving customers a breakdown of how the new bill works and what each of the pieces mean and how they're charged. And we'll show that in just a minute. Under that section, we have how utility charges work, and that's where we break down what base charges are, go into detail about that, and then we also talk about our usage commodity charges. Following that, we do a chart that breaks down the average residential rate, and it pulls in the data from the current list of comprehensive fees and charges. So when we update that online, this chart will update online as well. So there's no danger of having two different rates out there, so we don't run into trouble there. But you can see it broken down by electric, sewer, water, and then irrigation if they choose to have that. Before I show the video, any questions about the page? All right, we'll move right along.
Understanding your Town of Clayton utility bill. In this video, we'll walk you through your utility bill and help you better understand how it works so you can feel confident reading your bill each month. At the top of page 1 of your bill, you'll see your account information, including your account number, account name, and service address. To the right, you'll find your total amount due, due date, and details about your most recent payment, including when it was received and the amount paid. The account summary shows your previous balance and any payments received, and your current charges for this billing cycle. Below that, you'll see your current charges broken down by service, such as electric, water, sewer, garbage and recycling, and irrigation. Under this section, you'll find the total of your current charges and your total amount due. The bill also includes a chart that shows how each service contributes to your total charges. Keep in mind, not every customer has every service, so your chart may look slightly different. This visual helps you quickly see which services have the biggest impact on your bill. Below the chart is your My Usage snapshot. This allows you to compare your current usage with the previous month and the same month last year, helping you track trends over time. Please note, new customers will not see year-over-year comparisons until they have been a customer for at least 1 year. Although sewer is not listed here, it is important to know that sewer usage is based on water usage. In most cases, the water that comes into your home or business goes down the drain. Then it travels through the town sewer system to the water reclamation facility, where it is treated before being safely released back into the Neuse River. The Message Center includes important information or notices related to your service. These messages will often change from month to month. The Did You Know section provides helpful information about your utility services, along with water and energy conservation tips. This portion of the bill is used for remittance and includes your total amount due, due date, and information about potential late fees or penalties. Customers who mail payments should use the designated payment mailing address shown on the bill. Please do not mail payments to Town Hall, as this could delay processing and potentially result in late fees. On page 2 of your bill, you'll find a detailed breakdown of charges along with the 13-month usage history for electric, water, and irrigation services. In the following sections, it's important to note that the sample figures shown represent a typical residential account. In the electric section, you'll see the billing period and the number of service days. In this example, that's 31 days. Your usage is shown in kilowatt hours along with the rate applied to that usage. You'll also see the base charge. The base charge is a fixed monthly cost and is not based on usage. For electric service, it covers the cost of maintaining the electric system and ensuring service is always available to your home or business. This charge helps to cover infrastructure such as power lines, substations, and meters, as well as the staff required to safely operate and maintain the system. Lastly, you'll see the sales tax, which is applied to the total electric service charges, including both usage and the base charge. You'll notice that only electric service is taxed. This is because North Carolina law classifies electricity as a taxable commodity, while water, sewer, and garbage services are not subject to sales tax. Water rates are tiered, meaning the cost per 1,000 gallons increases as usage increases. The first 2,000 gallons are billed at the lowest rate, followed by the next 2,000 gallons, and so on. Any usage above 6,000 gallons is billed at the highest tier. Each tier only applies to the portion of water used within that range, not your total usage. This structure helps keep costs lower for customers who use less water. You'll also see a base charge for water service. This fixed monthly cost helps support the system that delivers clean, reliable water to your home or business, including water mains, pumps, meters, and ongoing system maintenance. Sewer is billed at a flat rate per gallon based on your water usage. As a reminder, sewer usage will always match your water usage. Your sewer service also includes a base charge. This fixed monthly cost helps support the collection and treatment of wastewater, including sewer lines, pump stations, and the water reclamation facility, not to mention the staff and equipment needed to keep the system operating safely. Garbage and recycling services are billed at a flat monthly rate. If you have a separate irrigation meter, those charges will appear here. This example shows that even when no irrigation water is used during the billing period, the base charge still applies because it is not based on usage. Additionally, irrigation meters are not charged sewer fees because that water does not enter the sewer system. The usage history section shows a 13-month view of your usage. For electric service, the current read reflects the total cumulative reading on the meter, while the previous read shows the last reading from the prior billing cycle. The difference between the two is your usage for the month, measured in kilowatt hours. Your water meter measures usage in units, where 1 unit equals 100 gallons. We subtract your previous reading from your current reading to determine the total units used, then convert that into gallons for your bill. This section allows you to compare your monthly water usage over the past 13 months. Irrigation usage is calculated the same way as water usage. In this example, no irrigation water was used during the billing period, so no usage appears on the chart. The final section of your bill outlines the different ways you can make a payment. Customers can choose the payment option that works best for them, whether that means mailing a payment using the address provided on the bill, enrolling in bank draft for automatic payments, or paying online through the town's payment portal. For added convenience, a drop box is available at Town Hall 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Customers who prefer to pay in person are always welcome to visit the customer service department at Town Hall during normal business hours. We hope this information has given you a better understanding of your utility bill, how your charges are calculated, and how your usage can impact your bill from month to month. Our goal is to make it easier for you to see your usage, understand your charges, and feel more informed each time you review your bill. If you have questions about your Town of Clayton utility account, please contact us at 919-553-5002 or at utilities@townofclaytonnc.org. Thanks for watching. Yeah. Any questions about the utility bill overview video or concerns?
I got a quick question.
Yes, ma'am.
And it may have to do with Ann. So when you, I don't know if you can clear that, so I see it clear. There's a notice right there under that circle down, right where your cursor just flew over. It has to do with the electronic billing
Service, such as
message
electric,
center.
water,
Is it
current usage
possible
with the
on that
previous
bill
month
when
and
it
the same month.
Is it possible on that bill going out without a big reset fee or a cost to make that message red? So that it would jump out on the page to you to, huh? Okay, I mean, we don't need a big reset, but if it's easy to make that bolder on the bill, I think that could be good. Just red or something, so it stands out.
And it may be red now, and I took a guess on that one. Okay.
Just to, yeah, don't want a big cost associated with that, but, or any cost associated with that.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you for having multiple formats. Like some people are going to watch the video. I'm just going to read all the text that's underneath. So I appreciate that multi option there.
Yes, ma'am.
Perfect.
All right. Anybody else? All right. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
That's great. Yes. So that does conclude everything that's on the adopted agenda. Mr. Attorney, are we going to need a motion to adjust the agenda, or is it just okay to go into a closed session to discuss personnel?
As long as it's by consent, you wouldn't need a formal motion. If there's any question about it, then get the motion.
We do. Mm-hmm. So, are we all good with going into a quick, thank you, closed session to discuss personnel? Everybody good? Okay, then we're going to do that. So, I'm going to call for a 10-minute recess, and then we'll reconvene and go into closed session. Thank you, everybody.